there is a feeling, a quiet hum of exhaustion that runs beneath the surface of modern life. It's a sensation you might know intimately. Picture a vast, invisible wheel, and you are running upon it. You run from one meeting to the next, from one deadline to another, your pace quickened by the ping of a notification, the buzz of a new email. You run towards a future you are constantly told to secure, and away from a past you are encouraged to optimize. The wheel spins faster and faster, a blur of obligations and expectations. Yet the landscape around you never seems to change. It is the same office, the same screen, the same nagging feeling of being perpetually behind. You are breathless, you are tired, but you cannot seem to stop. This is not a scene from a dream. For so many of us, this is simply the texture of a normal day. This is the invisible loop, the modern cycle of human life. It is a feedback system of effort and exhaustion, of wanting and disappointment, of constant distraction and a quiet, creeping sense of emptiness. We have become masters at sowing the seeds of busyness, planting rows of anxiety and worry with every glance at the clock, with every scroll through the highlight reels of other people's lives. And in return, we reap a predictable harvest, a field of unease, a constant, low-grade agitation that we have come to accept as normal. We feel trapped, not by physical walls or visible chains, but by the unseen currents of our own minds, by the repetitive patterns of thought and reaction that we follow, day after day. We are sowing and reaping, stuck in a cycle of our own making, often without even realizing we are the ones holding the seeds. But what if there was a way to step off the wheel? Not a magical escape, or a sudden departure from the world and its responsibilities, but a path of understanding, a way to see the wheel for what it is, to understand the mechanics of the loop that holds you captive. This understanding is not new. It is an ancient wisdom, a profound psychology of the mind that has been preserved for thousands of years within the framework of Buddhist philosophy. It does not ask you to believe in anything. It only asks you to look. It offers a map, a guide to help you recognize the very seeds you are planting in your own experience. It provides the tools, not to build a different world outside, but to cultivate a different world within. It teaches us how to stop sowing the seeds of stress and how to begin nurturing an inner garden of profound peace, stability, and clarity right in the midst of our complex, modern lives. To begin to see the invisible loop that governs our lives, we must first look at the threads from which it is woven. In the West, we have a word for this process, a word borrowed from the East and often misunderstood, layered with notions of cosmic justice, of a divine ledger keeping track of rights and wrongs. That word is karma. We tend to think of it as a grand, moralistic force, a universal boomerang, ensuring that bad people get what's coming to them, and good people are eventually rewarded. We say, what goes around, comes around, as if speaking of a cosmic police force. But the Buddhist understanding of karma is something far more subtle, more intimate, and infinitely more powerful. It is not a system of reward and punishment. It is a law of nature, as impersonal and as reliable as gravity. Gravity does not judge you if you step off a cliff. Gravity doesn't punish you for your foolishness. It simply operates. You fall. It is a natural consequence, a straightforward equation of cause and effect. Karma, in its purest sense, is exactly this. It is the universal law of cause and effect, the recognition that every action, every word, and every thought is a cause that will inevitably have an effect. The Pali word kamma literally means action. It is not about fate or destiny being written for us by an outside power. It is about the power that resides in our own actions to shape our reality. We are constantly in a process of creating. Every moment, we are setting something in motion. The threads of our future are spun in the loom of the present moment. This law is not mystical, it is mechanical. It is happening right now, in the small, quiet moments of your life, whether you are aware of it or not. The true revolution in understanding this law comes when we look deeper, not just at the action itself, but at the force that gives it its true power, its specific flavor. This force is intention. In the Buddhist teachings, the word for this is satana. It is said that intention, satana, is karma. It is the seed from which the entire plant of experience grows. The outer action can be identical in two different situations, but the inner intention will create two vastly different results, two completely different worlds. Consider the act of giving. A wealthy businessman donates a large sum of money to a hospital. On the surface, this is a good action, a wholesome cause. But if his intention, his satana, is driven by a desire for public recognition, for the tax deduction, for the feeling of superiority that comes with such a grand gesture, then the seed he has planted is one of ego, calculation, and pride. The result, the fruit that will ripen from this seed within his own mind, will be a strengthening of that same ego, a deeper entanglement in the world of reputation and gain. Now, imagine a poor woman who has only one small piece of bread for her lunch. She sees someone who is hungrier than she is, and without a moment's hesitation, moved by a simple, unadorned feeling of compassion, she gives her bread away. The external act is small, almost insignificant by the world's standards. But her intention, her satana, is pure, a spontaneous upwelling of kindness. The seed she has planted is one of selfless compassion and generosity. The fruit that will ripen in her heart is a sense of connection, of peace, of a joy that has nothing to do with getting something in return. The action is not the ultimate cause. The intention is the DNA within the seed. This is happening constantly. It is the subtle energy behind your words when you speak to your family. Is the intention to connect or to control? Is it to express love or to win an argument? It is the intention behind your work. Are you doing it with mindfulness and a desire to contribute? Or are you just going through the motions, driven by resentment or a desperate need for the weekend? The universe doesn't hear your words as much as it feels the intention from which they are born. This is why self-examination, a gentle and honest looking within, is so fundamental. We must become detectives of our own hearts, learning to recognize the subtle motivations that pull our strings. When we begin to see the power of intention, we can then observe how these causes and effects link together, creating the chains, the micro-loops that form our daily experience. It is rarely one grand action that defines our lives, but 1,000 tiny interconnected ones. Imagine a simple common scenario. The alarm clock fails to go off. You wake up late. This is a neutral event, but the first seed of intention is planted with your very first thought. This is a disaster. The whole day is ruined. This thought cause, born of aversion, immediately produces its effect. A jolt of anxiety, a tightness in the chest. This feeling of anxiety is now a new cause. It propels you to rush, to move with frantic energy. In your haste, you spill coffee on your shirt. The anxiety, this feeling cause, has produced a clumsy action effect. Now, you are not only anxious, but also angry. This anger is another cause. It leads you to speak sharply to your partner when they ask a simple question. This verbal action effect creates a new result in the world. a look of hurt on their face, an atmosphere of tension in the home. You leave for work carrying the effect of that interaction, which is a heavy feeling of guilt, and this guilt becomes the newest cause, influencing how you interact with the first person you see at the office. Do you see the thread? One small reactive thought in the morning wove the fabric for the entire morning. We do this all day long. A critical comment from a boss, cause, leads to feelings of inadequacy, effect. That feeling of inadequacy, new cause, leads us to procrastinate on a project, new effect. That procrastination, new cause, leads to more stress and working late, new effect. We are knitting the net of our own entanglement, moment by moment, thought by thought, reaction by reaction. These are the unseen threads. There is a simple and profound story of a farmer who owned a field. The field represents our life, our mind. Every day, the farmer had a choice of what to plant. He had bags of rice seeds, seeds of patience, kindness, mindfulness, and understanding. He also had bags of weed, seeds of anger, jealousy, greed, and distraction. On days when the farmer was mindful and diligent, he would carefully plant the rice seeds. He would water them and care for them. On other days, when he was careless, distracted, or lazy, he would haphazardly throw weed seeds into the field, or simply allow the wind to carry them in. At the end of the season, he went to his field for the harvest. Some years, he found a field of nourishing rice. Other years, he found a field choked with thorny, useless weeds. Now, the crucial point of the story is this. The farmer could not blame the soil. He could not blame the weather or the sun. The state of his field was not a punishment or a reward from the heavens. It was simply the direct, unavoidable result of the seeds he had planted. You cannot plant a field of thistle and then stand there, bewildered and angry, wondering why you are not harvesting sweet figs. The harvest is always true to the seed. Our lives are this field. Our moment-to-moment intentions are these seeds. The quality of our existence, the peace or turmoil, the connection or loneliness, the freedom or constriction we feel is our harvest. This understanding is the ultimate form of empowerment. It moves us from the position of a victim to the position of an architect. When we don't understand karma, we see life as something that happens to us. We are at the mercy of external events, other people's moods, and sheer luck. Why is this happening to me? We ask, feeling helpless. But when we understand karma, we realize that life is something that happens from us. It is a reflection of our own inner workings. This is not about blame. It is the opposite of blame. Blame is a dead end. This is about agency. It is about recognizing that if we are the ones sowing the seeds, then we are the ones who can choose, right now, in this very moment, to plant something different. We are, as the Buddha said, the heirs to our own actions. Our lives today are the inheritance from our past choices. Our lives tomorrow will be the inheritance from the choices we make today. The power to change the harvest is not in the future. It is in the quality of the seed we are choosing to plant in the soil of this present moment. And so, we are left with a fundamental question. If this law is true, if our intentions and actions are truly the cause of our happiness and our suffering, then why do we so often, so consistently, choose to plant the seeds of weeds? Why do we reach for the seeds of anger, anxiety, and distraction, even when we know the bitter fruit they will bear? What is the deep, underlying force that compels us to act against our own best interests, to keep the invisible loop spinning? To answer this, we must look even deeper at the very nature of the soil itself. We must look at the fundamental condition of our existence. The question that hangs in the air once we begin to see the law of cause and effect in our lives, is a powerful one. If we are the creators of our own experience, why do we so often create suffering? Why do we keep planting the seeds of anxiety and dissatisfaction? The answer begins not with a judgment, but with a diagnosis. When the Buddha awakened to the nature of reality, his first teaching was not a set of commandments or a complex metaphysical theory. It was, in essence, a medical framework, a path to healing presented as four noble truths. Think of a master physician approaching a patient. The first step is to accurately and courageously diagnose the illness. The second is to identify its cause. The third is to confirm that a cure is possible. And the fourth is to prescribe the treatment. This first truth, the diagnosis, is the foundation for all that follows. It is a simple, direct, and profound acknowledgement of the fundamental nature of our unexamined lives. The teaching is this: there is an inherent quality of unsatisfactoriness, of stress, in life as we typically experience it. The Pali word for this is dukkha. This word is most often translated into English as suffering, and that single word is the source of a great deal of misunderstanding. It makes the teaching sound pessimistic, as if it is claiming that all of life is misery and pain. But the meaning of dukkha is far more nuanced. While it does include the obvious pain of sickness, loss, and grief, it also points to something more subtle. It is the feeling of being slightly out of sync. It is the friction of existence. Imagine driving a car with a wheel that isn't perfectly round. On a smooth road, you would still feel a constant, subtle bump, a vibration, a sense of things not being quite right. Dukkha is this bump. It is the pervasive tension that underlies even our happiest moments, the quiet hum of not quite. It is not a judgment that life is bad, but a realistic observation that our relationship with life is inherently stressful, as long as we remain in ignorance of its true nature. To look at dukkha is not an act of negativity. It is an act of profound realism and courage. It is the first step toward true and lasting wellness. To understand this diagnosis more clearly, the teachings break dukkha down into three distinct types, or layers. The first is the most obvious, the one we all know. It is the dukkha of pain, or dukkha. This is the raw, unavoidable pain of the body and mind. It is the throbbing of a migraine, the ache in your back, the chronic illness that limits your life. It is the sharp, tearing grief of losing someone you love. It is the sting of betrayal, the humiliation of failure, the gnawing anxiety of waiting for test results from a doctor. This kind of suffering needs no explanation. It is acute, undeniable, and a universal part of the human story. We spend a great deal of our lives trying to avoid it, fix it, or numb ourselves to it. It is the most visible symptom of our condition. The second layer is more subtle and perhaps more pervasive. It is the dukkha of change, or viparinama dukkha. This is the stress that is woven into the very fabric of our pleasant experiences. Think of a perfect, beautiful moment, a golden sunset on a long-awaited vacation, the laughter of your children on a summer afternoon, the blissful feeling of falling in love, the pride of achieving a major goal. These are moments of genuine happiness. Yet, if we are truly honest with ourselves, even in the midst of this joy, there is a subtle undercurrent of tension. It is the quiet, nagging knowledge that this moment is temporary. It will end. The sun will set. The children will grow up. The passion will evolve. The success will fade into the next challenge. This knowledge creates a subtle clinging, a desperate desire to freeze time, to hold on to the pleasant feeling. This clinging, this resistance to the natural flow of life, is itself a form of suffering. It is the anxiety of knowing that everything we grasp will eventually slip through our fingers. It is why we compulsively take photos, trying to capture and possess a fleeting experience. The happiness is real, but because it is conditional and impermanent, our attachment to it becomes a source of stress. The higher we fly on the wings of pleasure, the more we fear the inevitable return to earth. The third layer is the deepest and most profound. It is the dukkha of conditioned existence, or sankhara dukkha. This is the background hum of unsatisfactoriness that permeates all of life. It is the baseline existential anxiety that we are so often trying to distract ourselves from. It's that vague restlessness that makes you open the refrigerator when you're not hungry, or pick up your phone to scroll endlessly when you're not looking for anything in particular. It is the feeling of being a fragile self in a constantly changing world. It is the deep-seated friction that comes from the fact that our bodies, our thoughts, our feelings, our identities, everything we call minds, not a solid, stable thing, but a temporary collection of constantly shifting processes. We are building our life's foundation on shifting sand, and on some level, we know it. This creates a fundamental sense of insecurity. This is the out-of-sync, bumpy quality of the wheel itself. It is the subtle but constant effort required to maintain our sense of self, to defend our opinions, to manage our reputation, to simply hold it all together, day after day. It is a quiet exhaustion, a feeling that no matter what we achieve or acquire, something is still not quite right, not quite settled. This is the root diagnosis. There is a powerful story that illustrates this truth with heartbreaking beauty. A young woman named Kisa Gotami lived in the time of the Buddha. Her young son fell ill and died. Consumed by a grief so powerful it bordered on madness, she refused to accept his death. She clutched his small body to her chest and went from house to house, begging everyone she met for a medicine that could bring her son back to life. Some people mocked her, others turned away in pity, but no one could help. Finally, a wise man told her, "I cannot give you medicine, but I know someone who can. Go to the Buddha." She ran to the Buddha, presented him with her dead child, and pleaded for a cure. The Buddha looked at her with immense compassion and said, "There is only one thing that can help you. Go into the village and bring me back a single mustard seed. But it must be taken from a house where no one has ever lost a child, a spouse, a parent, or a friend." Filled with a desperate hope, Kisa Gotami began her quest. At the first house, she asked, "Do you have a mustard seed? The Buddha has sent me." "Of course," the people said. "But have you ever known death in this house?" she asked. "Oh, yes," they replied. "The living are few, but the dead are many. Do not remind us of our deepest grief." She went to the next house, and the next, and the next. At every single door, she heard the same story. One family had lost a father, another had lost a sister, another a beloved friend. House after house, the answer was the same. As the day wore on, the truth began to dawn on her, not as a concept, but as a deep bodily understanding. Her personal, unique, unbearable tragedy was, in fact, the shared, universal experience of all human beings. She was not alone in her sorrow. In that moment of realization, the tight knot of her personal suffering began to loosen. She understood. She took her son to the forest, laid him to rest, and returned to the Buddha, not with a mustard seed, but with a transformed heart. This is the essence of the first noble truth. It is not a declaration that life is hopeless. It is an invitation to see, as Kisa Gotami saw, that the challenges we face, loss, change, and a fundamental sense of unease, not a personal failing. They are not a sign that you are doing life wrong. They are simply the nature of the human condition, shared by everyone. To acknowledge this, to finally stop fighting the reality of what is the beginning of liberation. It is turning on the light in a darkened room. At first, the brightness might be jarring, but for the first time, you can see the layout of the room clearly and begin to navigate it with wisdom. To courageously and compassionately acknowledge the nature of our shared dis-ease is the first essential step. It allows us to ask the next vital question a good physician would ask. Now that we have identified the condition, what is its cause? What is the origin of this deep and pervasive unsatisfactoriness? Having courageously diagnosed the fundamental condition of our lives as one of inherent unease, a subtle and pervasive state of being out of sync, we can now take the next step on this path of healing. A wise physician, having identified an illness, does not stop there. They seek its origin, its root cause. The Buddha, in his profound investigation of the human mind, did exactly this. He looked deeply into the nature of this dukkha, this unsatisfactoriness, and what he discovered is the essence of the second noble truth. He found that the cause of our restlessness is not external. It is not our job, our partner, our financial situation, or the state of the world. These are merely conditions. The weather in which we live. The root cause, he saw, is an internal force, a specific and identifiable mechanism within our own minds. He gave it a name. The name is tanha. The Pali word tanha is often translated as craving or desire, but its meaning is closer to thirst. It is not a simple wanting. It is a deep, parched, burning thirst. It's a relentless, compulsive energy that drives us to seek satisfaction outside of ourselves. It is the engine of the invisible loop, the force that keeps the wheel spinning. A constant state of reaching and grasping for something we believe will finally quench our thirst and end our discomfort. This thirst is not a single entity. It manifests in three primary forms, three channels through which this restless energy flows. The first, and most easily recognized, is the thirst for sense pleasures, kama tanha. This is the endless wanting of pleasant sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and physical sensations. It is the craving for the sweet taste of chocolate, the captivating narrative of the next episode in a series, the hypnotic glow of a smartphone screen. It is the desire for the perfect song, the comfort of a warm bed, the thrill of a new purchase. It is the validation we feel from a like on social media, a rush of approval that is as fleeting as it is addictive. This form of thirst creates a cycle of dependency. We get a small hit of pleasure. It fades away, as all things do, and an emptiness or boredom returns. This emptiness triggers the thirst again, sending us on the hunt for the next pleasurable experience. We become like ghosts with hungry mouths, constantly consuming, but never truly nourished, because the satisfaction offered by sense pleasures is, by its very nature, temporary. The second form of thirst is more subtle and often goes unrecognized. It is the thirst for existence, or for becoming, known as bhava tanha. This is not just a craving for a thing or a sensation, but a deep craving to be. It is the powerful desire to become something, to solidify our identity, to carve out a permanent and secure sense of self in a world that is fundamentally insecure. It is the ambition to be seen as successful, the need to be perceived as intelligent or attractive, the drive to build a legacy that will outlast us. It is the clinging to our roles as a parent, a professional, are partnerers if they define the totality of who we are. This thirst is the engine of much of our striving in the world. It fuels our careers, our relationships, and our self-improvement projects. While these can be positive, when driven by this deep thirst for a solid identity, they become a source of immense anxiety. We live in constant fear of losing our status, of our identity being challenged, of failing to live up to the image of the self we have so carefully constructed. We are trying to build a statue of ourselves out of shifting mist. The third form of this thirst may seem contradictory, but it is simply the other side of the same coin. It is the thirst for non-existence, vibhava tanha. This is the craving for something to go away. It is the intense desire to annihilate an unpleasant experience. It is the desperate wish for a painful feeling, like anxiety or grief, to simply cease. It is the aversion to a difficult person, the urge to escape a boring meeting, the recoil from criticism. It is the energy of, I can't stand this, I want out, make it stop. This pushing away is just as much a form of thirst as pulling toward. Both are born from the same root of discontent with the present moment as it is. In its most extreme form, this thirst for non-existence can manifest as self-harm or suicidal thoughts, the ultimate desire to annihilate the self and its suffering. Whether we are desperately grasping for pleasure or desperately pushing away pain, we are in the grip of tanha. This dynamic creates the constant push and pull that defines our reactive lives. Imagine your mind is a small boat upon a vast ocean of experience. Every moment, a new wave arises. When a pleasant wave comes, a wave of praise, of success, of comfort, the engine of tanha immediately roars to life, and we try to pull the wave toward us, to hold on to it, to stop it from passing. When an unpleasant wave, a wave of criticism, of pain, of loss, the engine goes into reverse, and we try with all our might to push it away, to deny its existence, to break it before it reaches us. This constant activity of pulling and pushing, of grasping and resisting, is utterly exhausting. It is the very definition of stress. Peace is not found by successfully controlling the waves, by somehow managing to only have pleasant ones. Peace is found when we finally allow ourselves to turn off the noisy, striving engine and simply learn to float, to ride the waves as they are, with balance and grace. There is an ancient story used to teach this principle, the parable of the monkey trap. Hunters who want to catch monkeys without harming them devise a clever trap. They take a coconut or a gourd, hollow it out, and make a hole in it just large enough for a monkey's open hand to slide through. Inside, they place a piece of sweet fruit or some sticky rice. A monkey, drawn by its craving, will come along, slip its slender hand into the opening, and grasp the prize. But now, with its hand clenched into a fist around the bait, it cannot pull its hand out. The opening is too small for a closed fist. The monkey becomes frantic. It screeches and pulls, yanking its own arm, fighting against the trap. But it is not the gourd that holds it prisoner. It is its own clenched fist. It is its own refusal to let go of the prize. The key to its freedom is simple. Just open the hand, just release the bait. But its craving, its tanha, is so powerful, so all-consuming, that it cannot bring itself to let go. And so, it remains trapped, a prisoner of its own desire, until the hunters arrive. We are that monkey. The world is filled with gourds of our own, making the promotion we desperately want, the relationship we cling to, the anger we refuse to release, the pleasurable memory we replay endlessly. We grasp onto these things, clenching our minds around them, and then we wonder why we feel so trapped, so stressed, so unfree. We pull and we struggle, blaming the trap, blaming the world, blaming others. But the source of our bondage is our own clinging fist. The source is Tanha. And what is the root of this thirst? Why can't we, like the monkey, simply let go? The deepest root of Tanha is what Buddhism calls avidya, or ignorance. It is not ignorance in the sense of being unintelligent. It is a fundamental misperception of reality. We cling to pleasant experiences and push away painful ones because we are ignorant of the law of impermanence. We act as if pleasure can be made permanent and pain can be banished forever. We desperately try to solidify a self because we are ignorant of the truth that we are not a fixed noun, but a fluid verb, a process. We are like someone trying to build a dam out of water. The suffering is not caused by the things we desire or resent. It is caused by the act of clinging and pushing itself, an act born from a profound misunderstanding of the way things are. The second noble truth, then, is a message of profound hope and empowerment. It tells us that the cause of our suffering is not a flaw in the world, but a mechanism in our minds. The problem is not out there. It is in here. This shifts the entire paradigm. We are no longer helpless victims of circumstance. We are participants who hold the key. If the cause of our stress is an internal thirst, then the cure cannot be found in getting more of what we crave or successfully avoiding what we dislike. The cure must lie in addressing the thirst itself. This leads us directly to the next crucial question on this path of healing. If letting go of this deep and burning thirst is the way to freedom, is such a thing even possible for an ordinary human being? Can the fire of craving truly be extinguished? Having arrived at this point in our diagnosis of the human condition, we stand at a critical juncture. We have looked with courage at the pervasive nature of our dissatisfaction, the subtle and profound stress of being out of sync that we call dukkha. We have identified its root cause, not in the world outside, but in the world within, in the burning, insatiable thirst of our own minds, the relentless grasping and pushing away that we call tanha. This is a sobering realization, and if the diagnosis ended here, it might indeed be a cause for despair. We would be like a patient who has been told they have a serious illness caused by their own habits, with no hope of recovery. But this is precisely where the path of Buddhist wisdom pivots from a stark diagnosis to a message of profound and radical hope. This is the third noble truth. The third noble truth is the prognosis, the physician's reassuring statement that the condition is not terminal. A cure is not only possible, it is attainable. It states that there is a cessation of suffering and a cessation of its cause. The Pali word for this is nirodha, which literally means cessation or extinction. If the cause of the fire is the fuel of craving, then when the fuel is removed, the fire must go out. When the thirst of tanha ceases, the unease of dukkha also ceases. This state of cessation, this freedom from the relentless spinning of the wheel, is known by a more famous name, nirvana. Perhaps no word from the Eastern traditions has been more misunderstood in the West than nirvana. We have colored it with our own cultural concepts, imagining it as a kind of heavenly paradise, a lush garden in the clouds where we go after we die if we've been good. Or we imagine it as a state of blank nothingness, a total annihilation of self, a passionless void where we feel nothing at all. But nirvana is neither of these things. It is not a place you go to, and it is not a state of annihilation. It is a psychological reality that can be experienced right here, in this very life. The literal meaning of the word nirvana is to extinguish or to blow out, as one would blow out a candle flame. What is being extinguished are the fires that cause all our suffering, the fire of greed and grasping, the fire of hatred and aversion, and the fire of ignorance, the fundamental delusion that fuels the other two. Imagine these three fires are burning in the center of your heart, consuming your energy, clouding your vision with smoke, making you hot and agitated. The work of the path is to stop feeding these fires. And what happens when a fire goes out? What is left is not a black hole of nothingness. What is left is coolness. What is left is stillness. What is left is clarity. The smoke clears. The agitation ceases. Nirvana is this state of profound inner peace, a freedom of the heart that is so stable and so complete that it does not depend on whether the external world is pleasant or unpleasant. It is an unshakable joy that arises not from getting what you want, but from the cessation of wanting itself. It is the natural, peaceful state of the mind, when it is no longer at war with itself and the world. To make this more tangible, consider this simple, powerful image. Imagine you are holding a burning piece of charcoal in the palm of your hand. The heat is searing your flesh. The pain is intense, agonizing. This pain is dukkha. Now, what is the cause of this pain? Is it the existence of the charcoal? If the charcoal were resting on the ground a few feet away, it would cause you no suffering at all. The cause of the pain, the direct cause, is the action of clinging to it, of grasping it tightly in your fist. This grasping is tanha. You might try to find ways to make the suffering more bearable. You might run to a river and plunge your hand into the cool water, but as long as you are still clinging to the coal, the burning continues. You might try to find a special glove to wear or a less painful way to hold it, but these are only temporary measures that do not address the root cause. The third noble truth is the simple, liberating realization that the only way to end the suffering is to open your hand. Just let it go. The act of unclenching your fist, of releasing your grip, is nirodha, the cessation of clinging. And the moment the coal drops to the ground, what do you feel? You feel an immediate sense of relief. You feel coolness where there was burning. You feel freedom where there was the painful bondage of your own fist. That feeling, that state of freedom from that specific torment, is a taste of nirvana. The path is not about destroying the charcoal, which represents the world of pleasant and unpleasant experiences. The world will always contain hot coals. The path is about learning how to stop picking them up. This leads us to the most crucial and practical aspect of this truth, a distinction that dissolves the fears many of us have about this path. The path is about letting go, but it is not about giving up. This is a vital difference. Giving up implies a kind of life-denying renunciation. It suggests that to be free from the pain of relationships, you must become a hermit. To be free from the cravings for food, you must starve yourself. To be free from the anxieties of work, you must become a wandering beggar. This is an extreme of asceticism, a path the Buddha himself tried and rejected as unskillful. It is another form of aversion, another way of pushing the world away. Letting go, on the other hand, is the renunciation of clinging, not the renunciation of the world. It is learning to live in the world with an open hand. You can still engage fully, beautifully, and passionately with life. You can love another person with your whole heart, wishing them every happiness, cherishing their presence, but without the fearful, possessive cling of attachment that says, "I need you to be a certain way to make me happy," or "My identity depends on your love." You love them freely, like the sun shines, without needing to own the things it shines upon. You can work diligently towards a goal, applying your skills and creativity with vigor, but you learn to let go of your attachment to the outcome. You find joy and meaning in the process, in the quality of your effort, rather than pinning all your hopes on a specific result. This frees you from the crushing anxiety of potential failure and the fleeting high of success. You can savor the complex flavors of a wonderful meal, paying full attention, appreciating every bite. But when the meal is over and the taste is gone, you let it go. You don't spend the rest of the day chasing its ghost or lamenting its absence. The joy was in the experience, not in the desperate attempt to make it permanent. This is the freedom the third noble truth promises. It is the freedom of the monkey finally unclenching its fist. It is the freedom of the hand that has dropped the hot coal. It is the discovery of a happiness that is not dependent on things going our way. It is a peace that cannot be shaken by the winds of change, because it is not built on anything that can be taken away. It affirms that the end of our struggle is possible. It tells us that peace is, in fact, the mind's natural state, what is revealed when the clouds of grasping and aversion are allowed to part. It is the most optimistic news you could ever hear. And so, our medical diagnosis is almost complete. We have identified the illness, a pervasive, underlying unsatisfactoriness, or dukkha. We have pinpointed its direct cause, the inner thirst and clinging of tanha. And now, we have the hopeful prognosis. A cure is possible through the cessation of this clinging, a state of profound peace called nirvana. The final and most urgent question naturally arises. If a cure exists, what is the medicine? What is the specific, practical, step-by-step treatment plan that we can follow to learn how to open our clenched fist and extinguish these fires within? What is the path that leads from the suffering of the second noble truth to the freedom of the third? This question brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the prescription for liberation itself. We have walked a significant distance on this journey of understanding. We have looked directly at the universal condition of unease that characterizes our lives, the diagnosis of dukkha. We have identified its source within the restless, thirsty nature of our own minds, the internal engine of tanha, and we have been given the profound hope of a cure, the prognosis that this thirst can cease, leading to the unshakable peace of nirvana. We are now standing where a patient stands after hearing this hopeful news, looking into the eyes of the physician and asking the most important question of all: what is the medicine? What is the treatment I must follow to heal? The answer to this question is the fourth noble truth. It is the prescription itself, a practical, comprehensive, and life-altering path. Before he laid out this path, the Buddha told a story about one of his monks named Sona. Sona was so determined to achieve enlightenment that he practiced with extreme, punishing effort. He meditated and walked for so long and with such intensity that the soles of his feet cracked and bled. He was exhausted, discouraged, and on the verge of giving up, thinking himself a failure. The Buddha, knowing his state of mind, went to him and asked, "Sona, before you became a monk, you were a musician, were you not? You were skilled at playing the lute?" Sona confirmed that this was true. The Buddha then asked, "Tell me, Sona, if the string of the lute is wound too tightly, will it produce a beautiful sound?" "No, Lord," Sona replied, "it will most likely snap." "And if the string is too loose," the Buddha continued, "will it produce a beautiful sound?" "No, Lord," said Sona, "it will produce no sound at all." "And what must you do, Sona, to produce a beautiful, harmonious sound?" Sona replied, "Lord, you must tune the string so it is not too tight and not too loose." but balanced just right. The Buddha smiled. So it is, Sona, with this spiritual path. An energy that is too tense leads to restlessness. An energy that is too slack leads to laziness. You must find the balance, the middle way. This is the spirit in which the fourth noble truth is to be understood. The medicine is not another form of extremism. It is called the Noble Eightfold Path, and it is the ultimate expression of this middle way. A path that avoids the dead end of self-indulgence on one side and the painful, fruitless path of self-mortification on the other. It is not a list of 8 sequential steps you must master one by one, like climbing a ladder. It is far more organic, more holistic than that. Imagine it as 8 strands woven together to form a single, strong rope. Each strand is essential, and the strength of the rope depends on the integrity of every strand. As you strengthen one, you invariably strengthen the others. It is a blueprint for living, a complete guide to cultivating a balanced and awakened human life. The word right that precedes each path factor, from the Pali word sama, doesn't just mean correct as opposed to incorrect. It carries a richer meaning of wise, skillful, complete, and whole. It is a path of integration. To make this comprehensive path more understandable, the 8 factors are traditionally grouped into 3 essential trainings. These are not separate subjects, but 3 facets of a single process of awakening. The first training is in wisdom, or panya. This is the compass and the map for our journey. It is the seeing aspect of the path, the part that orients us and ensures we are heading in the right direction. Without wisdom, our efforts can be misplaced, and our good intentions can go astray. This training in wisdom consists of the first 2 path factors. The first is right view. This is the foundation of the entire path. It means seeing reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. It is the clear understanding of the law of cause and effect, of karma. It is the intellectual and intuitive grasp of the 4 noble truths themselves. That there is unease, it has a cause. The cause can cease, and there is a path to that cessation. Right view is the clear lens through which we see the world, free from the distortions of our fears and fantasies. The second part of wisdom is right intention, or sometimes translated as right thought or right resolve. Once we have a clear view, we must align our hearts with what we see. Right intention is the conscious cultivation of motivations that are free from selfishness and harm. It is the intention to let go of clinging, the intention to cultivate kindness instead of ill will, and the intention of compassion instead of cruelty. Right view tells us where we are going. Right intention is the deep, heartfelt commitment to make the journey. The second training is in ethical conduct, or sila. This is the acting aspect of the path. It is how we translate our inner wisdom and compassionate intentions into our engagement with the world. It is the practice of causing no harm with our body and our speech. It is about living in a way that creates peace and trust around us, which in turn creates a peaceful and stable mind for ourselves, conducive to deeper practice. This training is comprised of 3 path factors. The first is right speech. This is the practice of using our words skillfully. It means abstaining from lying, from divisive speech that sets people against each other, from harsh or abusive language, and from idle chatter that distracts and wastes energy. Instead, we cultivate speech that is truthful, kind, unifying, and purposeful. The second is right action. This involves our physical behaviors. It means abstaining from taking life, from stealing or taking what is not freely given, and from sexual misconduct or actions that cause harm to ourselves or others through sensual indulgence. It is the practice of living with physical integrity and respect for all beings. The third is right livelihood. This is a profound recognition that our practice must extend into our economic life. It means earning a living in a profession that is not harmful to others. Traditionally, this meant avoiding work in weapons, human trafficking, intoxicants, or anything that involves killing. In our modern world, it means looking honestly at our work and asking, does my way of earning a living contribute to suffering, exploitation, or the destruction of our world? It is about finding a way to contribute to society that aligns with our deepest values. The third and final training is in mental discipline, or samadhi. This is the training the mind aspect of the path. If wisdom is the map and ethics is the way we walk, then mental discipline is what gives us the strength, focus, and resilience to stay on the path. It is the inner work of transforming our scattered, reactive minds into instruments of clarity and peace. This training consists of the final 3 path factors. The first is right effort. This is the balanced, intelligent energy we learned about from the story of the lute string. It is the joyful effort to prevent and abandon unwholesome states of mind, like anger, jealousy, and greed, and to cultivate and maintain wholesome states like kindness, generosity, and peace. It is the work of being a skillful gardener of our own mind. The second is right mindfulness. This is the heart of the meditative practice. It is the art of paying bare attention to our experience in the present moment without judgment. It is learning to observe our body, our feelings, our thoughts, and the world around us with a calm, steady, and non-reactive awareness. Mindfulness is the anchor that keeps us grounded in the here and now, preventing us from being swept away by the storms of the mind. The final factor is right concentration. As mindfulness becomes more stable through right effort, the mind develops the ability to become unified and focused. Right concentration is the ability to place the mind on a single object and have it remain there, steady and unwavering. It is in this state of deep, calm concentration that the most profound insights into the nature of reality can arise. This, then, is the noble Eightfold Path. It is a complete and coherent system for human flourishing. It is not a path for ascetics in a cave, but a path to be walked in the midst of family, work, and the complexities of our world. It is a gradual cultivation, a process of becoming more awake, more compassionate, and more free, one moment at a time. It is not about achieving perfection, but about engaging in the practice. The path itself is the destination. And so, our journey must now begin to walk this path, to explore each of these 8 strands in detail, so we can learn to weave them into the fabric of our own lives. The entire path begins with wisdom, and wisdom begins with seeing. Therefore, we must begin where the Buddha began, with right view. The Noble Eightfold Path is not a journey taken in darkness. It is a path illuminated, and the source of that light, the very foundation upon which the entire structure of liberation is built, is the first factor, right view. Before we can take a single skillful step, speak a single truthful word, or make a single wise effort, we must first learn to see. We must have a clear map of the terrain of reality, not the distorted, imaginary map handed to us by our fears, our desires, and our cultural conditioning. Right view is not about adopting a new set of beliefs, memorizing a creed, or having blind faith in a dogma. It is far more radical than that. It is the practice of cleaning the lens of our own perception, wiping away the smudges of illusion so that we can see things, for the first time, exactly as they are. The Pali phrase is yatha bhuta, seeing things as they have come to be. It is an honest, unflinching, and ultimately liberating way of looking at ourselves and the world. Our ordinary, unexamined view is a kind of dream state. We navigate our lives based on a set of fundamental assumptions that we rarely, if ever, question. We assume that things are solid and stable. We assume that we are a solid and stable self at the center of our experience. And we assume that happiness can be found by arranging the solid things in the world to please our solid self. Buddhist wisdom suggests that these three assumptions are the primary illusions that create the entirety of our struggle. They are the source code of dukkha. Right view, therefore, is the courageous practice of seeing through these core illusions. It is about waking up from the dream. The journey begins with dismantling the first and most pervasive illusion, the illusion of permanence. On an intellectual level, we all know that things change. We see the seasons turn. We watch children grow. We observe the decay of all living things. We acknowledge the law of impermanence, anicca, as an obvious fact of life. Yet, we do not live this truth. We live in a state of constant, subtle denial. Our emotional and behavioral patterns are built upon the fantasy of permanence. We fall in love and build a relationship, and in the background of our mind is the quiet assumption that this feeling, this person, this dynamic will last forever. We then feel shocked, betrayed, and devastated when, inevitably, the relationship changes, evolves, or ends. We build a career, we achieve a certain status, and we fuse our identity with it. We think, I am a lawyer, I am a teacher, I am a success. We operate as if this title is a permanent fixture of our being, a solid ground beneath our feet. Then, a corporate restructuring, a retirement, or a change in our passions occurs, and we are thrown into a terrifying identity crisis, because the permanent thing we built ourselves upon has revealed its true, fluid nature. We live in our bodies as if they are immortal. Especially in youth, we treat our health and vitality as a given, a permanent possession. We are then surprised and resentful when the first gray hair appears, when wrinkles form around our eyes, when our energy begins to wane, or when an illness arrives to remind us that this body is a temporary vessel, a biological process that is in a constant state of flux, borrowing materials from the earth and destined to one day return them. We chase after possessions, the new car, the latest phone, the fashionable clothes, believing that acquiring them will bring a lasting satisfaction. We get a temporary thrill, a short-lived pleasure, but the newness inevitably fades. The car gets a scratch, a newer model of the phone is released, the fashion becomes outdated, the pleasure evaporates, leaving behind the same baseline of dissatisfaction, the same thirst, which then sends us hunting for the next permanent fix from another impermanent object. Our very thoughts and emotions, which feel so solid and so me in the moment, are the most fleeting phenomena of all. A wave of anger can rise up, consume our entire mental landscape, convince us of its righteousness and permanence, only to vanish an hour later, leaving us wondering at its power. A state of joy can make the world seem vibrant and full of promise, and then, like a passing cloud, it is gone, replaced by a mood of melancholy. We are like someone trying to build a house on the surface of a river. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus famously said that you cannot step into the same river twice. The Buddhist insight deepens this. Not only is the river different from moment to moment, but you, the one who is stepping, are also different. The cells in your body, are not the same ones that existed a moment ago. The thoughts and feelings present in your mind are not the same. Everything, inside and out, is a relentless, flowing, dynamic process. To truly see this, to internalize the truth of anicca, is not a cause for depression. It is the doorway to true appreciation and freedom. When you know that every moment is precious and unrepeatable, you learn to pay attention to it. You savor the warmth of the sun on your skin, the taste of your morning coffee, the sound of a loved one's voice, because you know it is a fleeting gift. You stop taking life for granted. When you understand that difficult situations and painful emotions are also impermanent, you can bear them with more grace and patience. You know this too shall pass. Your fear of loss diminishes because you understand that change is not a personal tragedy, but the fundamental, impersonal nature of the cosmos. You learn to hold the world with an open hand, appreciating its beauty without desperately trying to stop it from flowing through your fingers. This clear seeing of impermanence leads us directly to the second, and perhaps most challenging, illusion to penetrate, the illusion of a solid, separate self. This is the doctrine of anatta, or not self. This teaching is often a major stumbling block, as it sounds like a nihilistic denial of our own existence. But this is a misunderstanding. Anatta does not teach that you do not exist. It teaches that you do not exist as a permanent, independent, unchanging entity. A little homunculus or CEO sitting inside your head, pulling the levers of your thoughts and actions. We have a powerful, intuitive feeling of being a me inside our bodies. We think, I am thinking, I am feeling, I am deciding. We instinctively believe there is a singular, continuous self who is the owner of our experiences. But right view invites us to become a scientist of our own inner world and investigate this assumption. When you look inside with mindfulness, can you find this I? You look for the thinker of the thoughts, but all you find are the thoughts themselves, arising and vanishing like bubbles. You look for the feeler of the feelings, but all you find are the feelings themselves, waves of pleasantness, unpleasantness, and neutrality that wash through the body and mind. You look for the decider, but all you find are various impulses, habits, and intentions, often conflicting with one another. There is no single solid commander. There is only the process itself. To make this investigation more systematic, the Buddhist analysis deconstructs what we call a person into 5 distinct processes, known as the 5 aggregates or skandhas. By looking at these component parts, we can see that there is no self to be found apart from them. The first is form, our physical body, made of flesh, bone, and blood, composed of the 4 elements, constantly changing, aging, and heading toward dissolution. Is this body the real you? If you lose a limb, are you less you? The body is something we have, not something we are. The second is feelings, the constant stream of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral sensations that arise from contact with the world. Are you your happiness? Then, where do you go when sadness arrives? These feelings are fleeting guests, not the owner of the house. The third is perceptions, the mental function that identifies and labels things. Blue sky, loud noise, good idea, insulting comment. These labels are learned, conditioned, and constantly changing. They are not a solid self. The fourth is mental formations. This is a vast category that includes all our habits, memories, biases, opinions, and volitional urges. These are the patterns and programs running in our minds, conditioned by our past karma. They are processes, not a permanent entity. The fifth is consciousness, the raw faculty of awareness itself, the light that illuminates the other four aggregates. But even consciousness is not a monolithic self. It arises in dependence on an object. Seeing, consciousness, arises with a sight. Hearing, consciousness arises with a sound. Thinking, consciousness arises with a thought. It flickers on and off, from one sense door to the next. It is not a constant, abiding presence. Imaginear is the car, the engine, the wheels, the chassis, the steering wheel. Number car is simply the name we give to this collection of parts when they are assembled and functioning together. If you take the car apart piece by piece, at what point does it stop being a car? The carness was never a separate entity residing within the parts. It was a conceptual designation for the functioning whole. In the same way, self is the convenient name we give to the dynamic, interacting flow of these five processes of body and mind. It is a useful convention for navigating the world, but when we search for it as a solid, independent thing, it cannot be found. The freedom that comes from this insight is immeasurable. When you loosen your grip on the idea of a fixed self, your defensiveness softens. Criticism is no longer a personal attack on the core of your being. It is simply feedback on a temporary pattern of thought or behavior. The frantic need to prove yourself, to protect your ego, to win every argument, begins to fade. The fear of death, which is the ultimate threat to a permanent self, loses its terrifying power. If the self is not a solid thing, but a fluid process, then death is not an annihilation, but a profound transformation, a dissolution of the aggregates. Seeing impermanence and not self naturally gives rise to the third clarifying insight of right view, seeing interconnectedness. This is the other side of the coin of anatta. If there is no separate, isolated self, it is because everything in the universe arises in dependence on everything else. Nothing exists in isolation. This principle is called dependent origination, or paticcasamuppada. It reveals that the entire cosmos is a single, seamless web of cause and effect, where every part is intimately related to every other part. The Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh explained this with the beautiful image of a single sheet of paper. He invites us to look deeply into the paper and see the cloud floating in it. Without the cloud, there is no rain. Without the rain, there is no tree. Without the tree, there is no wood pulp, and therefore, no paper. So the cloud is essential for the paper's existence. But if we look further, we can see the sunshine that was needed for the cloud and the tree to exist. We can see the logger who cut the tree down, and we can see the wheat that made the bread for the logger's breakfast. We can see the logger's parents, and the soil, and the earth itself. If we were to remove any one of these elements, the sun, the cloud, the soil, the logger, the sheet of paper could not exist. It is empty of a separate, independent self, but it is full of the entire cosmos. It does not exist. It exists with everything else. So it is with us. The idea of a self-made man is the ultimate illusion. I cannot exist without the air I breathe, the food I eat, the parents who gave birth to me, the society that taught me language, the countless beings, plants, and minerals that support my existence every single moment. My thoughts are not my thoughts. They are conditioned by the books I've read, the conversations I've had, the culture I inhabit. My body is not my body. It is a temporary collection of cosmic dust on loan from the universe. Seeing this profoundly dissolves the feeling of loneliness and alienation. How can you be lonely when you are intimately connected to everything? It fosters a deep sense of humility and responsibility. You see that your every action, your every word, sends ripples out into this intricate web, affecting everything else. This insight is the logical foundation for true compassion. When you see that the other person is not truly other, that their suffering is interconnected with your own, then kindness and care become the only rational response. This, then, is the landscape of right view. It is a profound shift in perspective. It is seeing through the illusion of permanence, which frees us from the desperation of clinging. It is seeing through the illusion of a solid self, which frees us from the prison of ego. And it is seeing the reality of interconnectedness, which frees us from the desolation of loneliness and opens the heart to compassion. This clear seeing is not the end of the path. It is the beginning. It is the light that illuminates the way, so that our intentions, our speech, our actions, and our efforts can all be aligned with the truth and can finally lead us out of the dream of suffering and into the waking reality of freedom. If right view is the clear map that shows us the landscape of reality, right intention is the moment we choose our destination and set the compass of our heart. A map is useless, no matter how accurate, if we do not consciously decide which way to travel. We can stare at the truths of impermanence, not self, and interconnectedness, and be left paralyzed by the sheer scope of it all. Right intention is what mobilizes us. It is the vital link between seeing and acting. It takes the profound understanding gained from right view and translates it into a heartfelt aspiration, a conscious resolve that gives our life a new and wholesome direction. It answers the crucial question: now that I see the world and myself more clearly, what do I truly want to cultivate? To what do I want to dedicate the precious energy of my life? Right intention, also known as right resolve or right thought, is not about forcing the mind to think certain thoughts. It is about gently and consistently steering the heart away from the motivations that cause suffering and towards the motivations that lead to freedom and peace. It's a recalibration of our deepest why. Our unexamined life is typically driven by the intentions of the ego, the intention to get, the intention to possess, the intention to prove, the intention to defend, the intention to hide. The practice of right intention involves the conscious cultivation of three powerful counter-intentions that serve as direct antidotes to the poisons that fuel the cycle of suffering. The first of these is the intention of renunciation. This word, renunciation, often conjures images of harsh austerity, of world-denying ascetics who give up all comfort and pleasure. But in the context of the Eightfold Path, particularly for those of us living in the lay world, it refers to a much more subtle and profound inner turning. It is the renunciation of the addictive, exhausting pursuit of happiness through fleeting sense pleasures. It is the wise and considered resolve to let go of our clinging to the next hit of dopamine, whether it comes from a purchase, a substance, a social media notification, or any other external source. It is born from the clarity of right view, which sees that these things are impermanent and ultimately unsatisfying. They are like drinking salt water. They promise to quench our thirst, but only leave us thirstier than before. The intention of renunciation is therefore an intention of simplicity and freedom. It is the choice to find well-being in a state of peace rather than a state of excitement. It is recognizing that every time we say yes to a superficial craving, we are often saying no to a deeper contentment. In practical terms, this might look like consciously choosing to spend an evening in quiet reading or meditation instead of binge-watching another series. It might be the choice to simplify our environment, realizing that owning less is a form of wealth because it frees our attention and energy. It is the resolve to step away from gossip or outrage culture, recognizing that they feed on and amplify unwholesome states of mind. It is not about punishing ourselves or denying ourselves joy. It is the exact opposite. It is about realizing that we have been settling for a very low quality, fleeting, and addictive form of pleasure, and we are now resolving to seek a higher quality, more stable, and more nourishing form of well-being that arises from within. It is the intention to let go of the hot coal, not because we hate the coal, but because we love our hand and wish for it to be free from harm. The second right intention is the intention of goodwill or loving kindness. This is the direct and powerful medicine for the poison of ill will, anger, resentment, and aversion. If our thirst for pleasure is the pulling toward aspect of Tana, then aversion is the pushing away aspect. The intention of goodwill actively dismantles this reactive pushing. It is the conscious cultivation of a warm, patient, and friendly attitude towards all of life, without exception. Crucially, this practice begins with ourselves. Many of us harbor a deep-seated ill will towards ourselves, manifest in the voice of the relentless inner critic who berates us for our mistakes and shortcomings. The intention of goodwill means resolving to be a better friend to ourselves, to meet our own failures and imperfections with kindness and understanding rather than judgment. From this foundation of self-compassion, we then extend this attitude outward. It is a radical shift in our default response to the world. When another driver cuts us off in traffic, the habitual intention is one of anger and retribution. The intention of goodwill is to consciously replace that with a simple wish. May you be safe. May you arrive where you are going without incident. When we are faced with a difficult colleague or family member, the habitual intention is one of resentment and criticism. The intention of goodwill is to try and see the suffering behind their difficult behavior and silently wish, may you be happy. May you be free from the causes of your anger. This does not mean we condone harmful actions or become passive doormats. We can still set firm boundaries and speak truth to power, but we do so from a place of clarity and a desire for the ultimate well-being of all, rather than from a heart poisoned by hatred. We understand that feeding our own anger only harms one person, with certainty, ourselves. It is the resolve to meet the world with an open heart, not a clenched fist. The third right intention is the intention of harmlessness or compassion. This is known as avihisa in Pali, the root of the Sanskrit word ahimsa, made famous by Mahatma Gandhi. It is an extension of goodwill, moving from a general friendly attitude to a specific, active sensitivity to the suffering of others. If goodwill is the wish for others to be happy, compassion is the wish for them to be free from suffering. It is the heart's natural response to seeing the first noble truth, the truth of dukkha not just in ourselves, but in all beings. It is the resolve to live our lives in a way that minimizes the harm we cause, both intentionally and unintentionally. This intention becomes a guiding principle for our moment-to-moment choices. Before we speak, we can pause and ask, are these words likely to cause harm, to create pain or division? Before we act, we can ask, what are the ripples of this action? Who might be affected? It guides us to become more conscious consumers, perhaps choosing products that are not made with exploitative labor or environmental destruction. It might manifest as a newfound gentleness, where we scoop up a spider and release it outside, rather than crushing it without a thought. It is the deep empathy that allows us to truly listen to a friend in pain, offering the gift of our presence, rather than rushing to offer advice. It is the understanding that all beings, from the smallest insect to the most difficult human share the same fundamental wish: to be free from pain and fear. The intention of harmlessness is the resolve to honor that wish in all our interactions. A beautiful parable illustrates the power of intention. Imagine two men who are both working to build a magnificent temple. They perform the same actions every day. They quarry stone. They carve intricate designs. They lay foundations. An observer, watching from a distance, might see no difference between them. But their inner worlds are universes apart. The first man is driven by the intention of ego. He thinks, when this temple is finished, everyone will praise my skill. My name will be remembered for generations. I will be seen as a great and pious man. His work is filled with anxiety, with comparison to the other workers, and with a desperate craving for future recognition. The second man is driven by the intention of compassion. He thinks, may this temple become a place of peace. May all who enter its gates find refuge from their sorrows. May this be a space that inspires kindness in the hearts of others for centuries to come. His work is filled with joy, with a sense of connection to others, and with a deep, quiet meaning that is present in every moment of his labor. The external action is identical. The inner karma, the quality of their lives, could not be more different. This is the power we reclaim when we practice right intention. We become investigators of our own hearts, learning to distinguish the motivations of the ego from the motivations of wisdom. We can develop the habit of pausing throughout our day, especially before speaking or acting, and asking that simple, gentle question: why? What is the real energy behind this? Is this coming from a place of wanting, fearing, and defending? Or is this coming from a place of clarity, kindness, and freedom? When we set our heart's compass by these three great intentions, the resolve to let go, the resolve to be kind, and the resolve to be harmless, we have already taken a giant leap on the path. For when our inner direction is true, our outer expression naturally begins to follow. And the very first place this purified intention manifests is in the words we use. When the compass of the heart has been set by right intention, when we have made a conscious and sincere resolve to turn away from harm and towards kindness and clarity, the path then moves from the inner world of aspiration to the outer world of expression. The very first and most constant way our inner state manifests is through our speech. We are communicating creatures, and our words are not merely sounds. They are potent actions, a form of karma that we perform hundreds of times a day. Words can be bridges, or they can be walls. They can be medicine, or they can be poison. They are seeds that we plant in the fertile soil of our own minds and in the minds of others, seeds that will inevitably bear fruit. The practice of right speech is the art of becoming a conscious, wise, and compassionate gardener of our communication. It is the first step in the training of ethical conduct, the practice of translating our inner wisdom into a life of integrity. Right speech is not about censorship or developing a bland, artificial way of talking. It is about understanding the power we wield every time we open our mouths and learning to use that power skillfully for the benefit of ourselves and others. The traditional teachings outline this practice in four main components, often framed as what to abstain from. By understanding what to avoid, we simultaneously learn what to cultivate. The first principle is to abstain from false speech. At its most basic level, this means not telling lies. It is a commitment to representing reality as we understand it, to be a person whose words can be trusted. But this principle goes far deeper than avoiding blatant falsehoods. It invites us to examine the subtle dishonesties we engage in every day, often without a second thought. It includes the habit of exaggeration, where we embellish a story to make ourselves seem more interesting or important. It includes the strategic omission of facts, where we tell a version of the truth that conveniently leaves out our own fault or responsibility. It includes making promises we don't truly intend to keep. And it includes the countless white lies we tell, not to protect another's feelings, but to protect our own comfort, to avoid a difficult conversation, or to manipulate a situation to our advantage. The commitment to right speech is a commitment to a radical honesty, which builds self-respect and the trust of others. The cultivation of this principle, however, is not a license for blunt, tactless cruelty. The Buddha taught that skillful speech has many qualities. It should be truthful, yes, but it should also be beneficial, spoken at the right time, and delivered with kindness. To speak a harsh truth at the wrong moment, or with the intention to wound, is not right speech. It is a form of violence disguised as honesty. The practice lies in finding the skillful balance. It is learning how to give difficult feedback in a way that is constructive and supportive, not shaming. It is knowing that sometimes, even if something is true, it is better left unsaid if it serves no beneficial purpose. We ask ourselves, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Navigating these questions is the art of truthful and compassionate communication. The second principle is to abstain from divisive or slanderous speech. This is the use of words to create enmity and discord, to set people against one another. Its most common and poisonous form is gossip. When we gossip, we are often trying to create a false sense of intimacy and superiority with the person we are speaking to, bonding over a shared negative judgment of a third person who is not present. We engage in backbiting, saying things about people we would never say to their face. We spread rumors and speculation, finding a kind of perverse pleasure in the drama and potential downfall of others. In the digital age, this manifests as subtweeting, participating in online pylons, and sharing unflattering stories or images of others. All of these actions come from a place of insecurity. We try to build ourselves up by tearing someone else down, but this is an illusion. Divisive speech only pollutes our own mind with negativity and erodes the fabric of trust in our communities. The positive cultivation here is to use our words to build bridges and foster harmony. It means that when we hear a negative story about someone, we make the conscious choice for that story to stop with us. We do not pass on the poison. When we see conflict, we look for opportunities to speak in a way that encourages understanding and reconciliation, highlighting common ground rather than differences. It is the practice of speaking about people who are not present with the same respect we would use if they were in the room. This kind of speech creates an atmosphere of safety, trust, and genuine connection. The third principle is to abstain from harsh speech. This includes the obvious forms of verbal aggression, shouting, cursing, insults, name-calling, and threats. But it also includes the more subtle and often more insidious forms of verbal violence. It is the biting sarcasm that is disguised as a joke but intended to wound. It is the condescending tone that implies the other person is stupid. It is the passive-aggressive comment, the backhanded compliment, the words used to publicly shame or belittle someone. These are all weapons drawn from the armory of the ego, and their wounds can be deep and long-lasting, creating scars on a person's psyche. The antidote is to consciously cultivate gentleness in our communication. It is to choose words that are, in the Buddha's phrase, pleasing to the ear and endearing. This does not mean we must speak in a sugary, artificial way, or that we cannot be firm when necessary. It means that even when we must disagree, or deliver bad news, or set a boundary, we do so with a fundamental respect for the dignity of the person we are speaking to. It is choosing a tone that is calm and measured, especially when emotions are high. This practice can single-handedly transform the emotional climate of a family or a workplace, replacing an atmosphere of fear and defensiveness with one of kindness and respect. The fourth and final principle is to abstain from idle chatter. This is speech that is empty, pointless, and without benefit. It is the verbal equivalent of junk food. It fills the space, but offers no nourishment, and often leaves us feeling more depleted. This includes complaining for the sake of complaining, endless speculation about things we cannot control, celebrity gossip, and any form of chatter that simply serves to distract us from the present moment and drains our precious mental energy. The cultivation here is twofold: to speak with purpose and to learn the value of noble silence. It means asking ourselves if our words have a genuine purpose, whether that purpose is to inform, to connect, to comfort, or to uplift. If they have no purpose, we can choose not to speak them. This leads us to the profound practice of noble silence. In our noisy world, we often feel an anxious compulsion to fill every empty space with sound. Noble silence is not an awkward, empty void. It is a rich, full, and mindful presence. It is learning to be comfortable, simply being with another person, without the need for constant chatter. It is recognizing that often, the most profoundly compassionate and supportive thing we can offer someone is not our advice or our opinions, but our silent, loving, and non-judgmental attention. There is a classic story that perfectly encapsulates the strength and wisdom of right speech. One day, a man came to the Buddha and began to insult him with a torrent of abusive language. The Buddha listened patiently and silently until the man was finished. He then asked him, "My friend, if someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does that gift then belong?" The man, surprised by the question, thought for a moment and replied, "Well, it would belong to the person who offered it." The Buddha nodded and said, "Exactly so. You have offered me your insults and your anger. I do not accept them." And with that, he fell silent. The man was stunned, and the Buddha's calm non-reactivity became a powerful teaching for him. The words of anger, if not received, remain the property of the speaker, poisoning only their own heart. This is the power we cultivate through right speech. We realize we do not have to accept the gifts of anger or gossip that others offer us, and we can stop offering such poisonous gifts to others. The practice begins with a simple, mindful pause. A single conscious breath before we speak can be the space where we catch a reactive, unskillful comment before it leaves our lips. It is the space where we can ask, is this true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? It is the space where we choose which seeds to plant. As we purify our speech, we are taking a concrete step in purifying our mind. Our words are a constant form of action, the bridge between our inner world and our outer reality. Having begun to master our communication, we must then extend this same quality of harmlessness and skillfulness to all of our physical behaviors. Having set the compass of the heart with right intention and begun to purify our communication through right speech, the path now guides us to the realm of our physical body. Right action, or samma, kamanta, is the practice of aligning our bodily conduct with our deepest wisdom and compassion. It is the tangible expression of our inner state, the way our ethics become embodied and visible in the world. If our intentions are the blueprint and our words are the initial sketches, then our actions are the construction of the temple of a liberated life. We learn to move through the world in a way that creates safety, trust, and well-being, rather than harm, fear, and discord. Like right speech, this practice is traditionally defined by what we abstain from, which in turn illuminates the positive virtues we seek to cultivate. It focuses on three fundamental areas of human behavior. The first and most foundational principle of right action is to abstain from taking life. On its most basic level, this is a clear and uncompromising commitment to refrain from intentionally killing another human being. But the spirit of this precept radiates outward from that core, inviting us into a state of profound reverence for the life force itself, in all its forms. It is a recognition that all sentient beings, from the largest mammal to the smallest insect, share a fundamental desire to live and to avoid pain. Right action asks us to honor this desire. It challenges the arrogant and careless assumption that our own needs and wants give us the right to destroy other living creatures without a second thought. This doesn't mean that everyone must immediately adopt a specific diet or lifestyle, but it does mean that we must become deeply mindful of the consequences of our actions. It means cultivating a sensitivity and a sense of responsibility for our impact on the ecosystem and the creatures who share this planet with us. But even more important than the abstention is the positive cultivation that it implies, the active practice of protecting and cherishing life. This is not a passive principle, it is an active virtue. It manifests when we take care of an animal, when we tend a garden, when we support efforts to protect the environment. It is present in the simple, conscious act of moving a spider from our home back into the garden, or stopping the car to allow a family of ducks to cross the road. In these small moments, we are training our hearts to value life, to act as guardians rather than destroyers. We are aligning ourselves with the force of creation, not the force of destruction. We are making our physical presence in the world a source of safety for all beings. The second principle of right action is to abstain from taking what is not given. This, of course, includes the obvious acts of stealing, robbing, or cheating. But like the other principles, its scope is far broader, addressing the root intention of greed wherever it appears. This precept asks us to look at all the subtle ways we might take what has not been freely offered. This can include finding a loophole in a contract to exploit someone, illegally downloading music or movies, cheating on our taxes, or not giving our employer a full and honest day's work for a full day's pay. It can be as subtle as taking credit for an idea that belonged to a colleague, or using someone's generosity against them. Any action, large or small, that is driven by the energy of grasping for something that is not rightfully ours, falls under the shadow of this precept. It is an action that strengthens the illusion of a needy, separate self who must hoard and grasp to survive. The direct antidote, the active virtue we cultivate, is the beautiful practice of generosity, or dana. Generosity is considered a cornerstone of the spiritual path because it strikes directly at the heart of the ego's fear and sense of lack. When we give, we are affirming a sense of abundance and connection. This generosity can take many forms. There is the giving of material things, offering food, money, or resources to those in need. There is the giving of our time and service, volunteering for a cause we believe in, or simply helping a neighbor. And then there are what are considered the highest forms of giving, the gift of safety, which is the gift we give through the first precept of not harming, and the gift of sharing wisdom, and the teachings that lead to freedom. The practice of generosity, of developing an open and giving hand, systematically dismantles the clenched fist of craving. It shifts our identity from one who gets to one who shares, and in doing so, creates a life of richness, that has nothing to do with material wealth. The third principle of right action is to abstain from sexual misconduct. This precept calls for us to bring mindfulness, respect, and responsibility to the powerful energy of our sexuality. Its core purpose is to prevent the immense suffering that can be caused when this energy is used unskillfully, selfishly, or harmfully. The most evident form of misconduct is causing harm through betrayal, such as engaging in adultery, which shatters trust and causes deep emotional pain to one's partner and family. It also clearly means avoiding any form of sexual action that is exploitative or non-consensual, where another person is treated as an object for our own gratification, rather than as a fellow being worthy of absolute respect. It is about honoring the commitments we have made, both explicit and implicit, and respecting the emotional and physical boundaries of others. The positive cultivation here is the practice of fidelity, deep respect, and mindful communication within our intimate relationships. It is about seeing sexuality not merely as a physical act or a means of release, but as a potential expression of connection, kindness, love, and intimacy. It means bringing our full, non-judgmental awareness to our desires and learning to channel them wisely. It is the practice of ensuring that our sexual expression is a source of joy, connection, and well-being, rather than a source of suffering, confusion, or harm for ourselves or anyone else. The transformative power of committing to right action is perhaps best illustrated by the dramatic story of a man named Angulimala. His name literally meant finger necklace, because he was a terrifying serial killer who roamed the forests, murdering travelers and collecting one of their fingers to add to the gruesome garland he wore around his neck. One day, the Buddha was walking through this same forest. The villagers warned him, but the Buddha continued on his way with unshakable calm. Angulimala saw him and began to run after him, sword drawn. But a strange thing happened. Though the Buddha was only walking at a normal pace, Angulimala, running with all his might, could not catch up to him. Exhausted and bewildered, he shouted, "Stop, monk! Stop!" The Buddha, still walking, turned his head and replied with perfect serenity, "I have stopped, Angulimala. It is you who have not." These words struck Angulimala like a bolt of lightning. He understood at once that the Buddha had stopped the inner cycle of violence and hatred, while he, Angulimala, was still running endlessly in the cycle of causing suffering. In that moment, his entire worldview shattered. He threw down his sword, bowed at the Buddha's feet, and asked to become a monk. The Buddha accepted him. This story is a testament to the radical possibility of change. No matter how deeply one has been caught in a cycle of causing harm, the path of right action is always available in the present moment. Angulimala's story did not end there. As a monk, he was often recognized by the families of his past victims, who would throw stones and sticks at him on his arms round. He bore these attacks with incredible patience, understanding them as the inevitable karmic result of his past actions. He dedicated the rest of his life to the practice of absolute harmlessness, becoming a living embodiment of the principles of right action. This is the path we are invited to walk. It is a path of making our body an instrument of peace. Through abstaining from killing, we cultivate a reverence for all life. Through abstaining from stealing, we cultivate a spirit of generosity. And through abstaining from sexual misconduct, we cultivate a profound respect for ourselves and others. Having begun to purify our speech and our physical actions, the path naturally asks us to look at the larger context in which we perform these actions day after day, the way we spend our time, the way we make our living. As we continue to walk the Eightfold Path, We see how each step flows logically and organically from the one before. We have aligned our view with reality. We have set our heart's intention on the path of liberation, and we have begun to purify our expression in the world through our speech and our physical actions. The path now leads us to examine the very structure of our daily lives, the activity that, for most of us, consumes the largest portion of our waking hours, our work. This is the practice of right livelihood, and it is the culmination of the training in ethical conduct. It insists that there be no separation between our spiritual values and our professional life. It shatters the convenient but stressful modern habit of compartmentalizing our lives, where we might act as one person on a meditation cushion or in a place of worship, and a completely different person in the office or the marketplace. Right livelihood is the radical commitment to live a single, integrated life of integrity. The principle is straightforward. We should earn our living in a way that does not bring harm to ourselves or to others. Our survival and prosperity should not be built upon the suffering, exploitation, or delusion of any being. It is the application of the principles of right action and right speech to the entire sphere of our work. In the Buddha's time, he was very specific about certain trades that were to be avoided, because they are, by their very nature, founded upon causing harm. These traditional categories of wrong livelihood provide a powerful framework for us to reflect upon our own work in the complex modern world. The first of these is dealing in weapons. In any age, this is the business of creating and distributing the tools of violence and death. To profit from the instruments that cause bloodshed and destruction is a direct contradiction of the intention of harmlessness. In our time, this extends beyond just guns and bombs to the design of advanced military technology, the development of aggressive cyber warfare capabilities, or even working in a communications role that creates propaganda to fuel conflict and hatred. The second is dealing in living beings. In the Buddha's era, this referred primarily to the slave trade and the business of raising animals for slaughter. Today, it speaks directly to any form of human trafficking or exploitation. It also forces us to look at our relationship with the animal world. To work in a factory farm, a slaughterhouse, or any part of the industrial meat industry where the suffering of animals is a necessary component of the business model is considered wrong livelihood. It is a profession built upon the violation of the first precept of not taking life. The third, which is closely related, is dealing in meat, specifically the business of butchery, the act of dismembering the bodies of slaughtered creatures. The fourth is dealing in poisons, substances designed to destroy life. In our contemporary world, the category of poisons can be interpreted far more broadly. A poison is any substance that causes harm and addiction. This could include a pharmaceutical company that knowingly markets an addictive and dangerous drug for profit. It could be an agricultural corporation that produces pesticides that poison ecosystems and farm workers. It could even be a food industry giant that engineers hyper-palatable junk food full of sugar and chemicals that directly contributes to the epidemics of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. To profit from poisoning the bodies of others is a form of deep harm. The fifth prohibited trade is dealing in intoxicants. This refers to the business of selling substances that cloud the mind and lead to heedlessness. Heedlessness, or a lack of mindfulness, is considered the root of all unskillful actions. Therefore, to profit from selling the tools of heedlessness, like addictive drugs or alcohol, is to profit from creating the conditions for suffering. In our digital age, we could even extend this principle to reflect on work that involves creating intentionally addictive technologies, such as gambling applications or social media algorithms designed to hijack our attention and foster a state of mindless, compulsive engagement. The guiding question that arises from this ancient list is profoundly relevant today. Does my work, directly or indirectly, cause harm? Does my profession depend on or increase the greed, hatred, delusion, or addiction of others? This is a serious question, and for many of us, the answers may be uncomfortable. It is a radical call to align our economic activity with our deepest ethical principles. However, the practice of right livelihood is not meant to be a source of guilt or despair for those who find themselves in complex situations. This is where the path reveals its incredible wisdom and compassion. Right livelihood is not just about your job title. It is, perhaps even more importantly, about how you do your job. Your attitude and your moment-to-moment actions can transform almost any neutral profession into a profound practice. You could be a doctor, a profession that seems to be the very definition of right livelihood. But if you perform your work with greed, impatience, and a lack of compassion for your patients, you are not truly practicing it. Conversely, you could be a janitor, a job the world might see as lowly. But if you perform your work with diligence, mindfulness, and the genuine intention of creating a clean and safe space for others, you are walking the path with every sweep of your broom. There is a beautiful teaching from the Zen tradition about the tenzo, or the head cook in a monastery. The work of a tenzo is mundane: washing rice, chopping vegetables, managing supplies, and cooking meals. It is ordinary, repetitive labor. Yet, the great Zen master Dogen wrote that the role of the tenzo is one of the most important and respected positions, reserved only for experienced practitioners. This is because the tenzo is expected to handle their work with the mind of enlightenment. They handle each carrot, each grain of rice, with profound respect, as if it were the body of the Buddha himself. They waste nothing. They are fully present with the task at hand, whether it is scrubbing the floor or tending the fire. They see their work not as a chore, but as a direct expression of their practice, an act of nourishing and serving the community. They transform their kitchen into a temple and their cooking into a living meditation. This is the spirit we can all bring to our work. Whatever our profession, we can practice right livelihood. We practice it when we are honest in our dealings and refuse to cut corners or deceive. We practice it when we treat our colleagues, our customers, and our clients with the kindness and respect of right speech. We practice it when we perform our duties with a sense of responsibility and integrity, giving our best effort. We practice it when we look for ways, even in a corporate environment, that our work can be of genuine service to others. By bringing this quality of mindfulness and good intention to our work, we cease to be a cog in a machine and become a conscious, ethical agent, transforming our livelihood into a path of practice. Right livelihood, then, closes the circle of our ethical training. It ensures that the way we sustain our life is in harmony with our intention to cause no harm. It integrates our spiritual path into the very fabric of our daily existence, leaving no part of our life untouched by the light of wisdom and compassion. With this, we complete our exploration of Sila, the training in ethical conduct. These three factors, right speech, right action, and right livelihood, work together to purify our relationship with the outer world. They create a life of integrity, simplicity, and peace, which in turn creates a stable and calm foundation for the deeper work of training the mind. An ethical life without a trained mind is fragile, easily thrown off balance by strong emotions. A trained mind without an ethical foundation can become a powerful tool for selfishness. The two must develop together. And so, having established this firm ground of ethics, the path now turns inward to the specific, transformative practices that train the mind itself. This is the training in mental discipline, and it begins with the very engine of inner change: right effort. Having established a life of ethical integrity through the practice of right speech, right action, and right livelihood, we have built a stable and solid ground for the deeper, transformative work to begin. An ethical life calms our relationship with the outer world, reducing the external causes of agitation and remorse. But to find unshakable peace, we must turn our attention inward and begin the specific training of the mind itself. This is the third great division of the Eightfold Path, known as samadhi, or mental discipline. The very first factor in this inner training, the very engine that drives our progress, is right effort. When we hear the word effort, our modern, overworked minds often conjure images of struggle, of gritting our teeth, and forcing our way through obstacles with grim determination. We think of stress, tension, and burnout. But the concept of right effort, or samma vayama, is something entirely different. It is not about brute force, but about skill, balance, and wisdom. It is the art of applying our energy in a way that is joyful, sustainable, and effective. It is the wise perseverance that allows us to cultivate a beautiful inner landscape. We can recall the lesson the Buddha taught the monk Sona with his lute. A string that is too tight snaps, and a string that is too loose makes no sound. Right effort is the art of learning to tune the strings of our own energy perfectly, creating a life that is neither fraught with anxious striving nor stuck in the mud of complacency, but one that resonates with a vibrant, harmonious, and productive peace. Perhaps the most helpful way to understand the nature of this wise striving is to think of ourselves as a skillful gardener, and our mind as the garden we have been given to cultivate. A good gardener does not fight their garden. They work with it, understanding its nature, its seasons, and its needs. Their work is not a constant battle, but a joyful and creative collaboration with nature. This skillful gardener performs 4 essential tasks to ensure their garden is healthy and beautiful. These 4 tasks are the very definition of right effort. The first great effort is to prevent unwholesome states from arising. The skillful gardener does not wait for weeds to overrun their garden before they act. They take preventative measures. They build a sturdy fence to keep out animals that might trample the seedlings. They lay down a protective layer of mulch to stop weed seeds from finding fertile soil in which to germinate. In the same way, the first right effort is a proactive practice of wisdom and restraint. It is the effort of guarding the sense doors. Our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind are the gates through which the world enters our consciousness. If we leave these gates unguarded, all sorts of troublesome seeds can blow in and take root. Guarding the sense doors means paying wise attention to what we allow ourselves to consume. If you know that scrolling through certain social media feeds reliably triggers feelings of envy and inadequacy, guarding the sense door of sight means making the conscious choice to unfollow those accounts or limit your time on those platforms. If you know that listening to angry, divisive talk radio on your commute leaves you feeling agitated and irritable for hours, guarding the sense door of sound means choosing instead to listen to calming music, an inspiring podcast, or simply enjoying the silence. It is the simple wisdom of not touching a hot stove. You know it will burn you, so you make the effort not to touch it. The most important gate to guard is the mind itself. This is the effort to catch the very first spark of an unwholesome thought before it bursts into flame. For instance, a small feeling of irritation arises. Perhaps someone is walking too slowly in front of you. This is the spark. The unskillful, unguarded mind will immediately begin to feed this spark with a story. This person is so inconsiderate. They have no awareness. Now I'm going to be late. This always happens to me. Within seconds, the small spark of irritation has been fanned into the roaring fire of anger. The first effort is to notice that initial spark of irritation and simply let it be, without adding the fuel of a narrative. You notice the feeling, acknowledge it. Irritation. And then gently return your attention to your breath or to the feeling of your feet on the ground. You have prevented the weed from taking root. This is not suppression. It is a wise and compassionate redirection of energy. The second great effort is to abandon unwholesome states that have already arisen. Our gardener, despite their best efforts, will find that some weeds have inevitably sprouted. A seed might have been dormant in the soil or blown in on a strong wind. A skillful gardener does not despair or curse the weeds. They simply recognize that a weed is present and that its nature is to compete with the flowers for nutrients and sunlight. So, they calmly and methodically do what is necessary. They kneel down and gently, but firmly, remove the weed, making sure to get the root. In the same way, despite our practice of guarding the sense doors, unwholesome states like anger, greed, jealousy, or fear will inevitably arise in the mind. The second effort is the art of skillfully removing them. Again, this is not about suppression. To try and violently push down an emotion like anger is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It takes immense effort, and the moment you relax, it bursts back up with even more force. Instead of suppression, we apply skillful antidotes. If the weed of anger has taken root, we can apply the water of loving kindness. We can intentionally bring to mind the person we are angry with and wish them well, reflecting that their actions, like our own, come from a place of suffering and confusion. This softens the hard ground of our anger. If the weed of obsessive desire or lust has arisen, we can apply the practice of contemplating the unattractive aspects of the object of our desire, or reflecting deeply on its impermanent and ultimately unsatisfying nature. This cools the heat of grasping. If the weed of fear or anxiety is choking us, we can apply the practice of mindfulness of the breath, bringing our attention out of the catastrophic stories in our head and into the physical reality of the present moment, feeling the solid ground beneath us. This is the work of skillfully and compassionately clearing the mind of what is unwholesome. The third great effort is to cultivate wholesome states that have not yet arisen. Our gardener knows that a garden is not defined merely by the absence of weeds. Its true glory lies in the beauty of the flowers and the nourishment of the vegetables that grow there. So, they don't just pull weeds, they actively and intentionally plant the seeds of wholesome plants. They go to the nursery, they choose the seeds and seedlings they wish to cultivate, and they carefully plant them in the prepared soil. In the same way, the third effort is the proactive cultivation of the beautiful, positive qualities of the heart and mind. We don't just wait for happiness, kindness, or peace to arise by chance. We actively create the causes and conditions for them to grow. This is the effort we make when we deliberately set aside time in our day to practice meditation, planting the seed of mindfulness. It is the effort we make to read a chapter from an inspiring book or listen to a wise talk, planting the seed of investigation and wisdom. It is the effort we make to practice generosity, to offer a kind word, or to perform an act of service, planting the seeds of compassion and connection. It is the effort we make to practice gratitude, intentionally bringing to mind the good things in our life, no matter how small, planting the seed of joy. This is the joyful work of populating our inner garden with the seeds of the qualities we most wish to embody: kindness, clarity, tranquility, joy, and wisdom. The fourth and final great effort is to maintain and perfect the wholesome states that have already arisen. The gardener's work is not done once the seeds are planted. The young, tender shoots need consistent care. They need to be watered, nourished with fertilizer, and protected from pests and harsh weather so they can grow strong, blossom fully, and bear fruit. In the same way, once a wholesome quality has sprouted in our mind, we must make the effort to nurture it. This is the effort of consistency and appreciation. When a moment of genuine, unselfish kindness arises in your heart, the fourth effort is to recognize it and savor it. Don't just rush on to the next thing. Pause and feel the wholesome pleasure of that kindness. Appreciate it. This very act of appreciation strengthens the neural pathway, making that state more likely to arise in the future. You are watering the flower of kindness. When you have managed to establish a daily meditation practice, the fourth effort is the gentle discipline you apply to show up to the cushion every day, especially on the days you don't feel like it. This is the consistent watering that allows the root of mindfulness to grow deep and strong. This effort protects our progress from the weeds of complacency and laziness. It ensures that the beautiful qualities we have planted are not just fleeting visitors, but become stable, abiding features of our inner landscape. These four great efforts, practiced together, form a complete and dynamic system for transforming the mind. We are constantly, in a gentle and balanced way, preventing and removing the unwholesome, while simultaneously planting and nurturing the wholesome. This is the art of right effort. It is not a grim struggle against a flawed mind, but a creative and loving partnership with our own potential. The energy it requires is not the tense energy of a soldier going into battle, but the joyful, focused energy of an artist at their work or a gardener tending their beloved plants. It is this wise, balanced, and life-affirming energy that we must now learn to apply to the very heart of the meditative path, the practice that illuminates every other aspect of our lives, the development of moment-to-moment awareness. With the wise and balanced energy of right effort as the engine of our practice, we now arrive at the very heart of the training of the mind, the seventh factor of the path: right mindfulness. If right effort is the hand that tunes the lute string, right mindfulness is the musician's ear that listens with exquisite attention to the sound it produces. It is perhaps the most well-known aspect of Buddhist practice in the modern world, and for good reason. It is the essential skill that makes all other inner growth possible. It is the art of waking up from the dream of our discursive thoughts and arriving, finally, in the reality of our own life. Mindfulness, in its essence, is incredibly simple. The Pali word, sati, implies remembering, but it is not a remembering of the past. It is the practice of remembering to be present. The most widely used definition describes it as paying attention, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Let us unpack this. Paying attention, on purpose, means that mindfulness is not a passive, trance-like state. It is an active and intentional directing of our awareness. In the present moment means we are anchoring our attention in the here and now, not being lost in ruminations about the past or anxieties about the future, which is where the mind habitually loves to dwell. And non-judgmentally is the crucial ingredient of kindness. It means we observe our experience with a gentle, receptive, and open-hearted curiosity, rather than with the harsh inner critic that so often runs our lives. Our ordinary state of being is one of mindlessness, We eat a meal without tasting it, our mind 1,000 miles away. We drive to work and arrive with no memory of the journey. We have conversations while composing emails in our head. We are physically present, but mentally, we are ghosts. Mindfulness is the simple, radical act of coming home to our own body, our own heart, our own mind, in this and every moment. To provide a systematic way to train this faculty of awareness, the Buddha laid out a comprehensive framework known as the 4 foundations of mindfulness. This is the training ground, the gymnasium for our attention, showing us precisely what to be mindful of. The first foundation is mindfulness of the body. The body is the perfect starting point for our practice because, unlike our thoughts, it is always, undeniably, in the present moment. We begin by bringing our awareness to the physical reality of our existence. The most common and foundational of these practices is mindfulness of breathing. We don't try to control the breath or change it in any way. We simply rest our attention on the raw physical sensations of the breath as it enters and leaves the body. We feel the coolness of the air at the tip of the nose on the in-breath and the warm touch of the air on the out-breath. We feel the gentle rise and fall of the abdomen. The breath becomes our anchor, a steady and reliable home base we can return to whenever the mind wanders. From the breath, we can expand our awareness to the posture of the body, simply noting, sitting, standing, walking, or lying down. We can practice walking meditation, feeling the pressure and release of each footstep upon the ground, transforming a simple walk into a profound act of presence. We also learn to be aware of the constant flow of raw physical sensations throughout the body, the feeling of warmth in our hands, the tingling in our feet, the pressure of the chair beneath us, even the unpleasant sensations of an ache or a pain. By observing these as pure, impersonal sensations, we stop weaving stories of suffering around them. The second foundation is mindfulness of feelings. This refers not to complex emotions, but to the raw, underlying feeling tone that accompanies every single moment of our experience. Every sight, every sound, every thought, every sensation comes with one of 3 feeling tones. It is either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. This is a subtle, but incredibly powerful practice. When you take a sip of delicious, warm tea, you mindfully note the pleasant feeling tone. When you hear the jarring sound of a car alarm, you mindfully note the unpleasant feeling tone. When you feel the neutral sensation of your back against the chair, you note neutral. The purpose of this is to see, with piercing clarity, how these feeling tones are the trigger for our craving and aversion. Our entire reactive life is built upon the mindless habit of clinging to the pleasant, pushing away the unpleasant, and ignoring the neutral. By mindfully noting pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, we create a space. We see the feeling tone arise, and we see it pass away, without having to react. We break the automatic link between a pleasant feeling and the act of grasping, and between an unpleasant feeling and the act of resisting. We see them for what they are, fleeting, impersonal weather patterns passing through the landscape of our awareness. The third foundation is mindfulness of the mind itself, sometimes called mindfulness of consciousness. Here, we turn our awareness back on the mind itself and observe its state, its mood, its climate. Just as we might look at the sky and note whether it is sunny, cloudy, or stormy, we look at our own mind and note its quality without judgment. We simply and honestly acknowledge the mind is feeling angry right now. The mind is scattered and restless. The mind is feeling peaceful and calm. The mind is experiencing desire. The mind is free from desire. The power of this practice is that it creates a profound disidentification. When you can say, "The mind is angry," You are implicitly recognizing that you are not the anger. You are the awareness that knows the anger is present. This recognition is the beginning of true freedom. You stop being a victim of your moods and become the calm, spacious observer of them. You realize you are the sky, not the fleeting clouds that pass through it. The fourth foundation is mindfulness of dhammas, or mental objects. This is a slightly more advanced and analytical stage of mindfulness, where we begin to see our experience through the clarifying framework of the teachings we have been learning. It is seeing the underlying patterns and principles at play in our own mind. For example, when you are meditating and a strong desire for food arises, you don't just note desire. You might recognize, this is sensual desire, one of the 5 hindrances that obstructs clarity. When a wave of joy and well-being arises during your practice, you might note, this is joy, one of the 7 factors of awakening. It is like a botanist who, instead of just seeing a collection of green things in a forest, can identify each plant and understand its properties. In the same way, we learn to identify our own mental states, understanding which ones lead to suffering and which ones lead to freedom. This allows our right effort to become even more precise and effective. Imagine a person walking a tightrope, stretched across a deep canyon with a thundering waterfall below. To survive, their attention must be absolute. They cannot afford to be lost in thought about a mistake they made on a previous step, nor can they be paralyzed by fear of the steps yet to come. Their entire being, their entire consciousness, must be poured into the present moment, into the subtle feeling of their foot on the rope, into the minute adjustments of their body needed to maintain balance, right here, right now. This is the quality of life and death presence that mindfulness cultivates. The most profound benefit of this practice is the creation of a gap or a space between stimulus and reaction. In our ordinary, mindless state, something happens, someone says a critical word, and our response is instantaneous and automatic anger flashes. A defensive reply is spoken. The stimulus and the reaction are fused together. Mindfulness inserts a sacred pause into this process. The critical word is heard, stimulus. Because of our practice, we are able to mindfully notice what happens next. An unpleasant feeling arises in the chest. The thought, how dare they, appears. The impulse to lash out is felt. We see all of this as a sequence of events within our awareness, rather than being swept away by it. And in that space of seeing, we have freedom. We have a choice. We can choose to let the impulse pass. We can choose to breathe. We can choose to respond with a question, or with silence, or with a kind word. This space is where we break the chains of our past conditioning and become the conscious authors of our own lives. This is where the practice of mindfulness blossoms into the reality of liberation. As we apply the wise and balanced energy of right effort to this continuous practice of right mindfulness, something remarkable begins to happen. The mind, which was once like a restless monkey swinging from branch to branch, or a frantic butterfly flitting from flower to flower, gradually learns how to be still. Our ability to sustain our attention grows stronger. This stable, unwavering mindfulness, cultivated with patience and care, naturally blossoms into the 8th and final factor of the path. It deepens into the calm, unified, and powerful state of right concentration. As we steady ourselves with the wise energy of right effort and anchor our awareness in the present moment with right mindfulness, we arrive at the beautiful and profound culmination of the mental training, right concentration. This is the 8th and final factor of the path, known in Pali as Samma Samadhi, It represents the fruit that naturally grows from the diligent cultivation of the preceding path factors. When the mind is no longer pulled into the past by regret or thrown into the future by anxiety, when it is no longer agitated by unethical actions or scattered by distraction, it naturally settles. It becomes calm, unified, and clear. This state of collected, one-pointed awareness is right concentration. Imagine your mind is a deep mountain lake. For most of your life, the winds of desire, aversion, restlessness, and worry have been blowing across its surface, churning the water and kicking up the mud from the bottom. In this state, the water is turbulent and opaque. It cannot reflect the clear sky above, nor can you see into its depths. The practice of ethical conduct, sila, is like building a protective wall of trees around the lake, shielding it from the harshest winds. The practice of right effort and right mindfulness is the process that allows the turbulence to subside and the mud to slowly settle to the bottom. Right concentration is the result. The lake has become perfectly still, calm, and crystal clear. Now, it can reflect the moon and the stars with perfect, shimmering accuracy. Now, you can see all the way down to the hidden treasures and creatures in its deepest abyss. It is essential to understand that this state of samadhi is fundamentally different from the ordinary, everyday concentration we use to read a book, write an email, or solve a problem. Our normal concentration is often tense and strenuous. It is an act of forceful exclusion. We try to block out distractions, creating a subtle but constant strain. We are at war with the sounds around us, with the impulses within us. This kind of concentration is fragile and easily broken. Right concentration, however, is not born of force, but of letting go. It is a state of unification, not exclusion. The mind is not fighting anything. It has become so deeply interested and absorbed in its object of meditations, such as the breath, that distractions simply cease to have any power over it. It is a state that is relaxed, joyful, and profoundly stable. You do not force the mind to concentrate. You create the conditions of inner harmony and consistent mindfulness. And the mind, like water finding its own level, naturally comes to rest. In the classical teachings, the path of right concentration is described as a progression through a series of profound states of meditative absorption known as the jhanas. These are not mystical, otherworldly realms, but rather a map of the extraordinary potential for peace, bliss, and clarity that lies dormant within every human mind. They are what the mind experiences when it is temporarily freed from its usual burdens. To explore them is to understand the depths of tranquility that the path makes possible. The journey into these states begins when, through sustained mindfulness, the 5 primary obstacles to meditation have been temporarily abandoned. These are the 5 hindrances: the pull of sensual desire, the push of ill will, the heavy dullness of sloth and torpor, the buzzing energy of restlessness and worry, and the paralyzing nature of skeptical doubt. When these 5 clouds part, the sun of the first jhana can shine through. In this state, the mind is still engaged in thought. It is applying its attention to the meditation object and sustaining it there, but it is also flooded with 2 powerful new factors. The first is piti, often translated as rapture or zest. It is a thrilling, energetic sense of joy, a vibrant feeling that can manifest as goosebumps, a sense of lightness, or waves of pleasure washing through the body. The second factor is sukha, a deeper, more pervasive sense of bliss and contentment. It is a profound happiness, born not from any external object, but from the simple purity and freedom of the mind. To enter the first jhana, is like being a weary desert traveler who has finally stumbled upon a cool, clear spring. You are overjoyed, you delight in the coolness, and you have no desire to be anywhere else. As the mind rests in the bliss of the first jhana, it can, with continued practice, notice something subtle. It notices that the very act of thinking, of applying and sustaining attention, is itself a form of mental activity, a slight disturbance compared to an even deeper potential for peace. With this insight, it lets go of thought. This letting go leads to the second jhana. Here, the mind becomes profoundly silent. All inner chatter ceases. The lake becomes utterly still. The factors of rapture, piti, and bliss, sukha, do not disappear. In fact, they intensify, now born not of thought, but of pure unified concentration. There is a deep, unshakable confidence and inner faith. If the first jhana was a spring in the desert, the second jhana is like gently sinking into the depths of a vast, serene, and silent underwater world. The joy and peace are immense, stemming from a silence so deep it feels like the very source of all creation. From the profound stillness of the second jhana, an even subtler refinement is possible. The mind, now exquisitely sensitive, may begin to notice that the energetic, thrilling quality of rapture, piti, is itself a form of excitement, a subtle agitation. As it inclines toward an even greater tranquility, the rapture begins to fade. This leads to the arising of the third jhana. Here, the fireworks of rapture are gone, but the deep, radiant bliss, sukha, remains, suffusing the entire body and mind. It is described as the most satisfying physical and mental pleasure imaginable, a state of sublime contentment. Along with this bliss, a powerful, watchful equanimity, upekkha, becomes dominant. The mind is utterly calm, lucid, and aware, observing its own blissful state, without clinging to it. It is a state of perfect balance, like a master musician playing a single, perfect, and deeply resonant note that fills the entire concert hall. The final stage in this journey into stillness is the fourth jhana. From the radiant peace of the third jhana, the mind can perceive that even this sublime bliss is a conditioned state, a subtle object that can be clung to with a final act of letting go. This, too, is relinquished. What remains is a state of pure, unshakable equanimity, beyond pleasure and pain. The feeling of the breath may become so subtle that it seems to have disappeared entirely. All that is left is a vast, boundless, and luminous awareness, perfectly unified and spotlessly pure. The mind in the fourth jhana is compared to a great mountain, so immense and stable that no wind, no storm of life can possibly move it. It is the mountain lake, reflecting the sky so perfectly that the reflection and the sky become one. It is the pinnacle of mental peace and purity, attainable through concentration. However, as profound and desirable as these states are, they are not the final goal of the path. They are still conditioned, and therefore impermanent. Their ultimate purpose is not to become a blissful escape from life, but to create the perfect instrument for liberation. This is where we see the immense power of right concentration. Think of the ordinary, scattered mind as a common light bulb. It radiates light in all directions, but its energy is diffuse and weak. It can illuminate a room, but it cannot penetrate a solid object. A mind that has been unified and sharpened through the practice of samadhi is like a laser beam. All of its energy, all of its light, has been gathered and focused into a single, coherent point. This beam has immense power. It can cut cleanly through steel. This is the power of the concentrated mind. It is the ultimate tool for the practice of vipassana, or insight meditation. The goal is to develop this powerful, stable, and lucid laser of a mind, and then to turn that laser back upon experience itself, to see its true nature, with a clarity that shatters all delusion. With a mind this still and powerful, one can directly perceive the three characteristics of existence, not as a philosophy, but as a living reality. You can watch thoughts, feelings, and sensations arise and pass away from moment to moment, experiencing the truth of impermanence so directly that your clinging to things begins to dissolve. You can use this concentrated mind to look for the solid, separate self you've always believed in, and see with irrefutable clarity that there is only the ever-changing flow of these five aggregates, realizing the liberating truth of not self. You can see with profound insight how everything, including your own sense of self, arises in dependence on conditions, experiencing the truth of interconnectedness. This is where true liberation happens. It is the marriage of tranquility, samatha, and insight, vipassana. Right concentration provides the tranquility and the power, and this power is then used to fuel the insight that cuts through the roots of ignorance. And so, we have now completed our conceptual journey through the Noble Eightfold Path. We have seen how the training in ethics creates a stable foundation for our lives. We have seen how the training in mental discipline, beginning with right effort, sharpened by right mindfulness, and culminating in right concentration, transforms our mind into a tool of extraordinary capacity. Armed with this understanding of what a truly trained mind is capable of, we can now return to the great illusions we first identified with right view. We are now prepared to investigate them, not merely as interesting ideas, but as our own direct, intimate, and lived experience. And the most central of these illusions, the very hub of the wheel of suffering, is the deep-seated belief in a solid, enduring, and separate self. Having walked the entire Eightfold Path, we have cultivated an ethical life that brings harmony to our actions, and a concentrated mind that brings stillness and power to our awareness. This entire journey has been a preparation. It has been the forging and sharpening of a tool, the tool of a mind that is stable, clear, and bright. We are now ready to use this tool to perform the most delicate and liberating work of all, the direct investigation of the very nature of the self. We return to the insights of right view, but this time, not as concepts to be understood, but as truths to be realized directly in our own experience. We come to the very heart of the Buddha's liberating insight, the teaching that distinguishes this path from all others, the teaching of anatta, or not, self. Let us be clear from the outset. This teaching is not a nihilistic claim that you do not exist, that you are nothing, or that life is meaningless. It is the very opposite. It is an invitation to let go of a mistaken identity, a false and constricted sense of self, in order to discover a freedom and a connection that is beyond measure. The intuitive, deeply ingrained feeling of being a solid, separate, continuous me at the center of our universe is the root of all our suffering. It is this me that craves and clings. It is this me that feels aversion and hatred. It is this me that is consumed with pride, jealousy, and fear. The entire drama of our life, the endless cycle of hope and disappointment, is a story that revolves around protecting, promoting, and pleasing this fictional character we call me. To see through this illusion is to unplug the entire machine of suffering at its source. The ancient teaching text, The Questions of King Milinda, offers a brilliantly simple analogy for this profound investigation. A Greco-Bactrian king named Milinda, a sharp and inquisitive intellectual, approached the enlightened monk Nagasena to challenge him on this very point. After exchanging greetings, Nagasena said, "Your Majesty, how did you arrive here? Did you walk, or did you come by some conveyance?" The king replied that he had come by chariot. "Very good," said Nagasena. "Then please, Your Majesty, define for me what this chariot is. Is the chariot the pole to which the horses are yoked?" "No, venerable sir," said the king. "Is it the axle then? Number? Is it the wheels, the frame, the reins, or the whip?" "No," the king replied to each question. Then Nagasena said calmly, "Is the chariot all of these parts combined?" "No, venerable sir." "Is there then something apart from all these parts, which is the chariot?" "No, venerable sir." Nagasena then declared, "Your Majesty, I can find no chariot here at all. Chariot is merely a name, a convenient designation, a conventional term for this particular assembly of parts. This is the exact investigation we must now undertake with the self. We will take apart the chariot of our own being to see if we can find a permanent, independent driver, a solid self that owns and controls the parts. The Buddha's analysis gives us a framework for this deconstruction. It suggests that what we call a person is, like the chariot, a convenient designation for the dynamic interplay of 5 bundles of processes known as the 5 aggregates, or khandhas. Let us look for the self in each of these. First, we look at the aggregate of form. This is our physical body, or flesh, bones, blood, and organs. Is this body the real me? We look closely and see that it is in a state of constant flux. It is aging from the moment it is born. Its cells are dying and being replaced continuously. It is composed entirely of non-body elements: the food we have eaten, the water we have drunk, the air we have breathed. It is dependent on the earth, the sun, and the sky. We can lose parts of this body in an accident, and yet we still feel we are me. When it gets sick, we say my body is sick, implying a separation between the owner, I, and the possession, the body. So, the body is clearly something we have, a temporary process we inhabit, not the permanent self we are. Next, we investigate the aggregate of feeling. This is the endless stream of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feeling tones that arise with every experience. A pleasant feeling comes from a kind word. An unpleasant feeling comes from a headache. A neutral feeling comes from the touch of our clothes on our skin. Are you these feelings? If you were the happiness you feel, where would you go when a wave of sadness washes over you? You would cease to exist. We can see clearly that feelings are like weather patterns, passing through the sky of our awareness. They are fleeting, impersonal, and dependent on contact. They are not a solid, enduring self. Third, we look at perception. This is the mental function that recognizes, identifies, and labels our experience. It sees a shape and a color and says, tree. It hears a sound and says, birdsong. It experiences a feeling and says, good or bad. Are you your perceptions? We can see that our perceptions are deeply conditioned by our language, our culture, our past experiences, and our current mood. Two people can look at the same piece of modern art, and one perceives it as beautiful, while the other perceives it as ugly. Perceptions are unreliable, conditioned, and constantly changing. They are not a stable, independent self. Fourth, we investigate the vast and complex aggregate of mental formations. This includes all our thoughts, our habits, our opinions, our beliefs, our prejudices, our emotional reactions, our intentions, and our volitions. This is the aggregate we most closely identify with. We think, I am my thoughts, I am my personality. But when we sit quietly and watch our minds, what do we find? We find a chaotic stream of mental chatter. A thought about work arises, then a memory from childhood, then a worry about the future, then a line from a song. Our opinions change over time. Our habits can be broken and reformed. When we look closely, we see that these mental formations are not a unified, coherent self, but a collection of conditioned, often contradictory patterns. They are like computer programs running in the background, not the central programmer itself. Finally, we are left with the fifth aggregate, consciousness. This is the raw faculty of awareness that knows the other four aggregates. It is the seeing, the hearing, the tasting, the touching, the smelling, and the thinking. Surely this must be the real I, the ultimate witness. Yet, when we observe consciousness with a concentrated mind, we see that it, too, is a dependent process. It does not exist on its own. Seeing consciousness only arises when there is an I and a visible object. It arises, knows the object, and then vanishes. Hearing consciousness only arises when there is an ear and a sound, and then it vanishes. Consciousness is not a continuous, abiding spotlight that illuminates everything. It is more like a series of rapid, flickering lights, each one arising and ceasing in dependence on a sense organ and its object. It, too, is an impermanent, dependent process. Having taken apart the chariot, piece by piece, we are left with the same conclusion as Nagasena. We cannot find a solid, independent, permanent self anywhere within the five aggregates, nor can we find it apart from them. We see that self, I, me, and mine are simply conventional terms, useful labels for the dynamic, ownerless process of these five bundles of experience flowing together, interdependent and ever-changing. There is no driver in the chariot. There is only the journey. To realize this directly is not to lose anything of value. It is to lose a burden. It is to lose a cage. The freedom that comes from loosening the grip on the self is profound. When there is no solid me to defend, you become less defensive. Criticism and insults lose their sting because there is no fixed target for them to hit. They are just words directed at a temporary collection of thoughts and feelings. The frantic anxiety to promote yourself, to prove your worth, to manage your reputation, begins to calm down because you see there is no permanent self to promote, and a deep, authentic compassion begins to blossom. When you look at another person, you no longer see a solid, separate other to be feared or judged. You see another flowing process of the five aggregates, driven by their own conditioning, their own causes of suffering. Your heart naturally opens to them, recognizing your shared condition. The illusion of separation dissolves, and what is left is the reality of connection. This is the beginning of the end of loneliness. This is not the destruction of the self, but the discovery that you are something far more vast, fluid, and wonderful than the small, insecure ego you took yourself to be. You are not the wave. You are the entire ocean. As we stand in the liberating, open space created by the insight into not self, we can now turn our attention to the very engine that drives this truth. The reason we cannot find a solid, permanent self when we deconstruct the chariot of our being is because every single one of its components, our body, our feelings, our perceptions, our thoughts, and our consciousnesses, in a relentless, unstoppable state of flux. This is the great, universal, and undeniable law of impermanence. In Pali, it is called anicca. It is the teaching that nothing is static. Everything that arises is destined to pass away. Everything is a process, a flow, a river of constant change. This is not a mere philosophical proposition. It is the most fundamental, observable fact of our universe. On a cosmic scale, we see stars being born in fiery nebulae and dying as collapsing black holes. We see galaxies spinning and colliding over eons. On a planetary scale, we see mountains being pushed up by tectonic plates and slowly, grain by grain, being worn down into dust by wind and rain. We see great rivers carving new paths to the sea and coastlines being reshaped by the patient work of the tides. On a biological scale, we witness the endless cycle of the seasons, the budding of spring, the fullness of summer, the decay of autumn, and the dormancy of winter. We see our own bodies move from infancy to old age, every cell being replaced over time. And most intimately, we experience this truth in the very texture of our own minds. A thought arises, vivid and compelling, and in the next instant, it is gone, replaced by another. A wave of intense emotion, joy, anger, sadness crests, holds its shape for a moment, and then dissolves back into the ocean of our awareness. Our moods shift like the weather, our opinions evolve, our energy levels ebb and flow. Nothing, absolutely nothing, in our inner or outer world holds still. Everything is vibrating, changing, becoming, and unbecoming. To see this is to see reality. Now, this universal law of change is, in itself, completely neutral. It is neither good nor bad. It is simply the way things are. The river flows. That is its nature. The profound and life-altering insight of the Buddha was this: all our suffering, all our stress, all our anxiety comes not from the fact that things change, but from our relentless, futile, and exhausting resistance to this fact. We live our lives in a state of undeclared war with reality. We try to stand in the middle of the river and command the water to stop flowing. We build dams out of our desires and our fears, and then we are shattered when the immense, unstoppable power of the river inevitably washes them away. This resistance takes two primary forms. The first is clinging. When we experience a moment of pleasure, beautiful sunset, the taste of delicious food, the warmth of a loving embrace, a moment of success or praise, a mind instinctively grasps at it. We try to freeze the frame. A voice in our head whispers, "This is perfect. I want this to last forever." In that moment of clinging, we have sown a seed of future suffering. We have introduced a tension, an anxiety, into the experience itself. We are no longer simply enjoying the sunset. We are now worrying about its ending. We are no longer simply being with our loved one. We are now fearing their loss. By trying to possess the moment, we poison it with the fear of its inevitable passing. The second form of resistance is aversion. When we experience a moment of pain, a physical ache, a difficult emotion like grief or fear, a financial setback, a moment of criticism or failure, our mind violently pushes against it. We declare war on the present moment. We think, "I can't stand this. This shouldn't be happening. I have to make this go away now." This aversion, this mental and emotional fighting against what is already occurring, is what the Buddha called the second arrow. The initial unpleasant experience is the first arrow. It is painful, but often unavoidable. It is part of life. But our resistance, our story about how terrible it is, our desperate struggle to make it disappear, that is the second arrow, which we shoot into ourselves. It is this second arrow of resistance that causes the vast majority of our suffering. The pain might be 10 units, but our aversion to the pain adds another 90 units of torment on top of it. There is a classic Zen story that perfectly illustrates the wisdom of accepting impermanence. A Zen master had a beautiful, delicate teacup that he was especially fond of. He used it every day, and his students knew how much he cherished it. One day, he held it up before them and said, "To me, this cup is already broken." He then continued to use the cup, handling it with care and appreciating its beauty and function. But in his mind, he had already accepted its inevitable fate. He knew that, being made of clay, its nature was to one day break. Some weeks later, a student accidentally knocked the cup from a shelf, and it shattered into 100 pieces. The students were terrified of the master's reaction. But when the master came in, he simply looked at the pieces on the floor and said calmly, "Ah, it's time to get a new cup." There was no anger, no shock, no despair, because he had fully accepted the impermanent nature of the cup from the very beginning. He was able to enjoy it completely while it lasted, and let it go gracefully when its time was up. His mind was at peace. We spend our lives treating the world as if it is made of solid steel, and then we are endlessly heartbroken when it reveals itself to be as fragile as a teacup. The practice is to learn to see the teacup as already broken, and to love it even more for its precious, fleeting beauty. To truly embrace impermanence is also to embrace a profound source of hope, because everything changes. No state of suffering is permanent. This is a lifeline in times of darkness. When you are in the depths of grief, it is a comfort to know that the intensity of this pain will soften. When you are caught in the grip of anxiety, it is a refuge to know that this state of mind will pass. When you are facing a difficult life situation, it is a source of strength to know that the situation will evolve. The clouds will part, the storm will end, the winter will turn to spring. Nothing, no matter how terrible, lasts forever. This understanding gives us the resilience to endure hardship without falling into utter despair. Furthermore, the law of impermanence is what makes all growth, healing, and transformation possible. If things were permanent, we would be stuck forever with our current habits, our current sorrows, our current limitations. But because things are in flux, we have the constant opportunity to change. We can learn new skills. We can form new relationships. We can let go of old patterns and cultivate new ones. The person you were yesterday does not have to define the person you are today. Impermanence is the law that guarantees the possibility of renewal, of forgiveness, and of creativity. It is the open door to a future that is not yet written. Ultimately, we are faced with a choice in every moment. We can continue to fight the river of change, living a life of exhausting, stressful, and ultimately futile resistance. Or we can learn to dance with it. We can learn to be like a skillful surfer who doesn't try to stop the waves, but learns to ride them with balance, grace, and joy. This practice is not one of passive resignation, of giving up. It is an active, courageous, and wise alignment with reality. It is the choice to say yes to life as it unfolds, in all its beauty and all its pain, in its arising and its passing. It is the wisdom of the Zen master and his teacup, finding freedom not by preventing the cup from breaking, but by accepting its nature and loving it completely, just as it is. When we truly, deeply understand that everything is a fleeting process, including the very sense of self that wishes to possess and control, our relationship with the world must fundamentally change. If nothing lasts, and there is no one to own it, what does that mean for our endless, modern pursuit of things. Having journeyed to the profound and liberating insights of not-self and impermanence, we are left standing in a radically new landscape. If there is no solid, permanent me to please and aggrandize, and if every object, experience, and status we could possibly acquire is as fleeting and insubstantial as a cloud passing in the sky, then we must confront a fundamental question. What does this mean for the central project of our modern world? The relentless pursuit of happiness through the accumulation of material things. What happens to the promise of fulfillment that whispers to us from every advertisement, every storefront, and every browser window? The wisdom of the path invites us now to turn its clarifying light onto the very engine of our economy and our culture, the belief that what we have determines who we are and how happy we can be. The modern marketplace is a vast and sophisticated machine designed to manufacture and exploit our inherent sense of dissatisfaction, our dukkha. It is a secular religion that offers its own form of salvation. It preys on our deepest insecurities and promises a cure. It tells us, in 1,000 different ways each day, that the emptiness we feel inside can be filled by something from the outside. Are you feeling lonely and disconnected? The solution is this new smartphone, which promises seamless connection. Are you feeling unattractive or insecure about aging? The answer lies in this cosmetic, this anti-aging cream, this fashionable outfit. Are you feeling powerless or insignificant? The cure is this powerful car, this large house, this luxury watch, which will signal your importance to the world. The marketplace sees our inner void, our spiritual thirst, and it offers to quench it with an endless supply of things. This entire system is a magnificent, externalized manifestation of tanha, the insatiable thirst for more. It is a machine that cannot function if we are content. Its survival depends on us never feeling that we are enough or that we have enough. It must constantly create new desires, new feelings of lack, new anxieties that its products are designed to soothe. But the core teaching of the second noble truth tells us that feeding this thirst only makes it stronger. There is an old parable of a man adrift on a raft in the middle of a vast ocean. He is dying of thirst. Surrounded by an endless expanse of water, he becomes so desperate that he forgets what he knows to be true, and he begins to drink the seawater. For a fleeting moment, the wetness on his tongue and in his throat feels like relief. It feels like he is solving his problem. But the salt in the water rapidly begins to dehydrate his body, drawing the moisture from his cells. In a short time, his initial thirst returns, with a terrifying, agonizing intensity, far worse than before. Driven mad by this intensified thirst, he drinks even more seawater, believing that more of the same cure must be the answer. In doing so, he seals his own fate, trying to satisfy the inner thirst for genuine happiness with material possessions is exactly like drinking salt water. The act of acquiring a new object provides a momentary thrill, a fleeting sense of relief from our baseline dissatisfaction. But this pleasure is based on novelty and possession, and as the novelty wears off, as it always does, the underlying feeling of lack returns, often stronger than before. The new car gets its first scratch. The new phone is superseded by a newer model. The new clothes go out of style. The satisfaction they promised was a mirage, and our thirst for fulfillment remains unquenched, now demanding an even bigger, better, more expensive drink to find the same momentary relief. We are caught on a hamster wheel of desire and disappointment, forever chasing a horizon that recedes as we approach it. We fill our shopping carts, our homes, and our lives, but we feel an ever-deepening emptiness. The path to freedom from this exhausting cycle does not lie in finding the right thing to buy. It lies in cultivating the one thing that can never be purchased, an inner state of contentment. The Pali word for this is santuti, and it is one of the most radical and countercultural virtues we can develop. Contentment is not a state of passive resignation or a lazy acceptance of a mediocre life. It is not an abandonment of trying to improve ourselves or the world. Rather, it is the profound and joyful discovery of the richness that is already present in our lives. It is a shift from the mindset of scarcity, what I lack, what I need, what I don't have, to a mindset of abundance, focusing on the incredible wealth that we so often overlook. The primary tool for cultivating contentment is the practice of gratitude. Gratitude, in this context, is not a polite thank you or a sentimental platitude. It is a rigorous and transformative mindfulness practice. It is the conscious training of our attention to notice and appreciate the goodness that is already here. Our minds are conditioned with a negativity bias, constantly scanning for threats, problems, and deficiencies. Gratitude practice is the intentional counterbalance to this habit. We can make it a formal practice, perhaps by ending each day writing down 3 or 4 things for which we are grateful. They do not have to be grand things. I am grateful for the clean water that came out of my tap this morning. I am grateful for the comfortable bed I will sleep in tonight. I am grateful for the kindness of the stranger who held the door for me. I am grateful for the simple, reliable fact of my own breath. By consistently turning our attention to what is right, rather than what is wrong, we literally rewire our brains. We begin to see that our lives, no matter our circumstances, are filled with countless gifts that we have been taking for granted. This practice of appreciation extends to the rediscovery of simple pleasures. We have been conditioned to believe that joy is expensive and complicated. The path of contentment reveals that the most profound joys are often the most simple and freely available. The taste of a fresh apple, eaten with full attention. The feeling of warm sunlight on your skin on a cool day. The intricate beauty of a single leaf or a spider's web. The sound of rain against a window pane. A deep and honest conversation with a friend. The quiet satisfaction of cleaning a room and creating order from chaos. The immense pleasure of a glass of cool water when you are truly thirsty. These simple, ordinary moments are reservoirs of deep happiness, but their joy can only be accessed when we bring our full, mindful presence to them. The problem is not that we lack things to make us happy. The problem is that we lack the presence of mind to be happy with the things we already have. Flowing from this inner state of contentment is the outer practice of voluntary simplicity. Again, this is not about embracing a life of forced poverty or deprivation. It is the joyful and deliberate act of clearing away the unnecessary clutter from our lives, both physical and mental, so that we have the space and freedom to focus on what truly brings us meaning and well-being. Physically, this means becoming a conscious consumer. It means asking ourselves before every purchase, is this truly necessary? Will this genuinely add to my well-being? Or is it just feeding a fleeting desire? It might involve adopting a minimalist mindset, repairing things instead of automatically replacing them, or delighting in the freedom of having fewer, better things, rather than a house full of clutter. To declutter our physical space is to declutter our mind. There is a profound sense of lightness that comes from releasing our attachment to possessions. This principle of simplicity also extends to our mental and emotional lives. It means decluttering our schedules, learning the courageous art of saying no to invitations and commitments that do not nourish us or align with our values. It means reducing our consumption of digital junk food, the endless, mindless scrolling, the constant stream of notifications, the addiction to outrage and drama. It means simplifying our goals, choosing to focus our precious life energy on one or two projects that are truly meaningful, rather than scattering our attention across a dozen different pursuits. Simplicity is not about having less. It is about making space for more time, more peace, more freedom, more connection, more presence. It is the discovery that true wealth is not about the abundance of our possessions, but the simplicity of our wants. By seeing through the empty promise of the shopping cart and actively cultivating the inner richness of contentment and the outer freedom of simplicity, we perform a great act of healing. We stop trying to fill the void within us with things from without. We withdraw our search for happiness from the marketplace and begin the far more fruitful work of cultivating it in the garden of our own heart. This turning inward, away from the world of having and toward the world of being, is a pivotal moment on the path. It begs the question, if happiness is not to be found in things, where is it found? The answer is that it is found in the cultivation of beautiful, wholesome states of mind. It is time now to learn how to plant these flowers, to generate the inner qualities that are the true source of a joyful and meaningful life, beginning with the most foundational quality of all, the warm, open, and unconditional heart of loving kindness. Having turned away from the empty promises of the material world, we begin the truly joyful and creative work of the path, the active cultivation of the beautiful states of heart and mind that are the source of genuine, lasting well-being. The Buddhist tradition describes 4 such states, known as the Brahma Viharas, or the divine abodes. They are the sublime emotions, the boundless qualities of an awakened heart. They are loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. The first of these, the very foundation upon which all the others are built, is the practice of metta, or loving kindness. This is the practice of intentionally warming the heart, of dissolving the cold armor of fear and judgment, and of cultivating a radiant, unconditional friendliness that becomes our new way of being in the world. It is crucial to understand what metta is and what it is not. It is not the sentimental, possessive, and often selfish emotion that we typically call romantic love. It is not a transactional affection where we offer our love only on the condition that we receive something in return. It is not the passive state of just being nice. Metta is a powerful, intentional, and boundless aspiration. It is the sincere and unconditional wish for the true happiness and well-being of all living beings, without exception, without discrimination, and without any expectation of personal gain. A perfect image for metta is the sun. The sun shines its life-giving warmth on everything below it. It shines on the beautiful rose garden and on the pile of garbage. It shines on the kindest saint and on the most troubled criminal. The sun does not decide who is worthy of its warmth. It simply radiates freely and generously because that is its nature. The practice of metta is the path of cultivating a heart that is like the sun. This radical practice of loving kindness begins in a place that may seem surprising to many of us, especially in a culture that often mistakes self-criticism for a virtue. The practice of metta begins with ourselves. There is a simple, practical wisdom in this. You cannot pour water for others from a cup that is empty. If our own heart is a cold and barren place, filled with self-judgment, shame, and criticism, then any kindness we try to offer to others will be thin and inauthentic, a performance rather than a genuine expression of a full heart. For many of us, the harshest, cruelest, and most judgmental voice we hear all day is the one inside our own head. We would never dream of speaking to a dear friend the way we routinely speak to ourselves. The practice of metta for oneself is the direct antidote to this corrosive inner critic. It is the courageous act of turning the warmth of our own heart back upon ourselves. It is learning to treat ourselves with the same gentleness, patience, and encouragement that we would offer to a beloved child who is learning to walk. This is not about becoming selfish or narcissistic. It is not about ignoring our faults or letting ourselves off the hook for unskillful actions. It is about recognizing that we, like all beings, are worthy of kindness, and that true growth comes from a place of love, not from a place of fear. The formal practice of metta meditation often begins by finding a comfortable posture, closing the eyes, and gently bringing our awareness to the area around our heart. We then begin to silently repeat a series of phrases directed toward ourselves. The traditional phrases are a simple, profound wish for fundamental well-being. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be happy. May I live with ease. We repeat these phrases slowly, gently, allowing the intention behind the words to sink into our being. In the beginning, this can feel awkward, mechanical, or even untrue. The inner critic may arise and say, "You don't deserve this." The practice is to simply notice that voice with kindness and to gently, patiently return to the phrases. We are not trying to force a feeling. We are planting seeds. With consistent, gentle repetition, we are watering the seeds of kindness in the soil of our own heart. Once we have established some sense of this warm, friendly attitude toward ourselves, the practice then expands the circle of kindness outward in progressive stages. First, we bring to mind a benefactor or a respected, beloved persona teacher, a dear friend, or a family member, someone for whom it is very easy to feel love and gratitude. Holding their image in our mind, we now direct the phrases toward them. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. This stage is like adding kindling to the small flame of metta we have started within ourselves. It allows the feeling of warmth and goodwill to grow stronger and more stable. Next, we expand the circle to include a neutral person. This might be a cashier from the grocery store, a person we see on our daily commute, or a neighbor we don't know well. We hold this person in our mind and extend the very same wishes to them. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. This is a crucial step in the practice. It challenges our habitual indifference to the vast majority of people we encounter. It helps us to see the humanity in the stranger, to recognize that they too, just like us and our loved ones, wish to be happy and free from harm. It begins to break down the artificial walls we build between people who matter to me and everyone else. Then comes the most challenging and transformative stage of the practice. We are invited to bring to mind a difficult person, someone who has hurt us, angered us, or with whom we have a conflict. Holding this person in our mind, we try, as best we can, to offer them the same wishes of loving kindness. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. This can be incredibly difficult, and it must be approached with great patience and self-compassion. It is vital to understand that this is not an act of condoning their harmful behavior. It is not about saying what they did was okay. It is a practice for the liberation of our own heart. Holding on to anger, hatred, and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. The only person we are consistently harming with our own hatred is ourselves. By offering metta to a difficult person, We are making the radical choice to no longer allow them to live rent-free as a source of poison in our own mind. It is the act of freeing ourselves from the prison of our own resentment. Finally, having worked with these specific individuals, we allow the circle of loving kindness to become boundless. We radiate these wishes of well-being outward in all directions, to the front, to the back, to the right, to the left, above and below. We extend our metta to all beings in our city, our country, and our world. We extend it to all animals, all creatures in the sky, on the land, and in the water. We extend it to all beings, seen and unseen, near and far, great and small. May all beings be safe. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be happy. May all beings live with ease. In this final stage, the heart transcends all boundaries of us and them, and we rest in a state of universal, unconditional, and radiant loving kindness. This practice is the direct, prescribed antidote to the poison of anger. You cannot simultaneously hold a genuine wish for someone's happiness and a feeling of hatred toward them in the same moment of consciousness. They are mutually exclusive. By consistently practicing metta, we are systematically weakening the deeply ingrained neural pathways of anger, irritation, and fear, while strengthening the neural pathways of kindness, patience, and connection. Over time, our default response to the challenges of life begins to shift. Where once there was a quick flash of anger, there is now a pause, a space for a kinder, wiser response to emerge. This is the tangible result of a transformed heart. It is the peace that comes from choosing, again and again, to meet the world not with a clenched fist of fear, but with the open hand of unconditional friendship. As we develop this powerful wish for all beings to find happiness, a natural question arises. What is the appropriate response of an open heart when it encounters beings who are not happy, who are actively in pain? This wish for happiness, when it meets with the reality of suffering, blossoms into a new, profound, and active quality. It blossoms into compassion. As the heart softens and opens through the practice of loving kindness, it becomes increasingly sensitive, not just to the potential for happiness in the world, but also to the pervasive reality of suffering. A heart filled with metta, with the unconditional wish for all beings to be well, does not recoil or shut down when it encounters pain. It does not turn away. Instead, it responds. The radiant warmth of loving kindness, when it comes into contact with the truth of dukkha, transforms into the second of the four divine abodes. It blossoms into the profound and active quality of karuna, or compassion. The word compassion is often used loosely, but in the Buddhist understanding, it has a very precise meaning. The root of the word karuna suggests a trembling or quivering of the heart. It is the heart's visceral, sensitive response when it witnesses suffering, either in ourselves or in another. But it is not just a passive feeling of sadness. It is that tender feeling combined with the strong, clear aspiration. May this being be free from this suffering. It is metta's active twin. If metta is the wish, may you be happy. Karuna is the wish. May you be free from the causes of your unhappiness. It is an engaged, responsive, and courageous state of heart. It is vital to distinguish true compassion from its near enemy, pity. Pity, though it may seem similar on the surface, arises from a different place and creates a different result. Pity looks down from above. It creates a sense of separation between the observer and the one who is suffering. When we feel pity, there is an undercurrent of, "Oh, you poor thing. I am so glad I am not in your position." Pity reinforces the ego and the illusion of separation. Compassion, on the other hand, meets another at eye level. It arises from the recognition of our shared humanity, from the wise understanding that we are all vulnerable to sickness, loss, and pain. It says, "Not I feel sorry for you, but I feel with you." It is a sense of solidarity in the face of our common human condition. Pity creates distance, compassion dissolves it. Modern psychology also makes a helpful distinction between empathy and compassion. Empathy is the ability to feel what another person is feeling. While it is a crucial component of compassion, if we get stuck there, it can lead to empathic distress or burnout. We can become so overwhelmed by taking on another's suffering that we are paralyzed and unable to help. Compassion, or karuna, includes empathy, but it adds the wise and loving aspiration for that suffering to cease. This aspiration is not overwhelming, it is energizing. It is the motivation that allows us to respond to suffering with clarity and strength, rather than getting lost in it. Like loving kindness, the practice of compassion must begin with ourselves. For many of us, this is the most difficult work of all. When we ourselves are suffering, when we have failed, when we are in physical or emotional pain, when we feel broken, our habitual response is often one of self-aggression. We meet our own pain with the second arrow of harsh judgment, criticism, and shame. We tell ourselves, "You're so weak, you should have known better. Just get over it." We treat ourselves with a coldness and cruelty that we would never dream of inflicting upon a friend. Self-compassion is the practice of radically changing this relationship. It is the practice of turning the gentle, trembling heart of karuna inward. It means learning to treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer a dear friend who is suffering. It involves three key elements. The first is mindfulness, simply acknowledging our pain without exaggerating it or suppressing it. We turn towards our difficulty and gently name it. This is a moment of suffering. This hurts. The second is the recognition of our common humanity. We remind ourselves that imperfection, failure, and pain are not signs that we are uniquely flawed. They are part of the universal human experience. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone feels pain sometimes. I am not alone in this. This simple reminder dissolves the isolating feeling of shame. The third element is self-kindness. This is the active part, where we intentionally offer ourselves comfort and care. We might place a hand over our heart, feeling the warmth. We might speak soothing words to ourselves. May I be gentle with myself right now. May I give myself the patience and care that I need. This is not an act of self-pity. It is an act of courage and emotional intelligence, providing ourselves with the resources needed to navigate our suffering with grace. It is this element of courage that reveals the true nature of compassion. There is a common misconception that compassion is a soft, sentimental, or weak emotion. The truth is that genuine compassion requires immense strength. It takes tremendous courage to be willing to turn towards pain, to stay present with suffering, to keep our hearts open in a world that is so full of sorrow. The easy, habitual, and fearful response is to turn away. We change the channel when a sad story comes on the news. We scroll past the difficult posts on social media. We distract ourselves with busyness or entertainment to avoid feeling our own grief or anxiety. This is aversion. Compassion is the courageous choice to resist that impulse, to stay and to feel. It is this courage that fuels all truly helpful action in the world. It is the courage that allows a first responder to run towards a disaster, a hospice worker to sit with the dying, or a parent to soothe a crying child in the middle of the night. Compassion is the very source of our resilience and our power to make a difference. There is no more powerful illustration of compassion in action than the story of the Buddha and the sick monk. In one of the monasteries, A certain monk was afflicted with a terrible case of dysentery. He lay in his own filth, unable to care for himself. The other monks, repulsed by the sight and the smell, had completely abandoned him. The Buddha, upon hearing of the situation, went to the hut where the monk lay suffering. Without any judgment or hesitation, he turned to his faithful disciple Ananda and said, "Ananda, go and fetch some water." While Ananda was gone, the Buddha himself, the fully awakened one, began to gently clean the sick monk's body. When Ananda returned, together they washed the monk from head to toe, changed his soiled robes for clean ones, and settled him comfortably. After ensuring the monk was cared for, the Buddha gathered all the other monks together. He asked them why they had abandoned their brother. They remained silent. He then said to them, "You monks have no mother or father here to care for you. If you do not care for one another, who else will? Whoever would tend to me should tend to the sick." This story reveals the heart of Karuna. It is not a lofty, abstract feeling. It is practical, direct, hands-on, and fearless. It is not afraid to get its hands dirty. It is love, responding to the call of suffering. It is the recognition that, in our shared vulnerability, we are all responsible for one another. When we cultivate this brave and tender heart of compassion, we connect with others and ourselves at the deepest level. We are no longer afraid of the brokenness of the world, because we have found within ourselves the strength to meet it with love. As our heart learns to respond with kindness to happiness and with compassion to suffering, there is one more primary human experience we must learn to navigate skillfully: the experience of witnessing the happiness and success of others. This can often trigger the difficult states of jealousy and envy. The path, in its wisdom, provides a direct and beautiful antidote to this poison as well. The third of the divine abodes, sympathetic joy. Having cultivated a heart of unconditional loving kindness, or metta, that wishes for the happiness of all beings, and a heart of deep compassion, or karuna, that trembles in response to their suffering, the path now invites us to develop the remaining qualities of a truly liberated heart. We now turn our attention to one of the most common and painful afflictions of the human mind, a subtle poison that can curdle even our closest relationships and rob us of our own joy. That affliction is jealousy. The path asks, what is our heart's response when we witness not the suffering, but the happiness, success, and good fortune of others? The sublime and healing response, the third of the four divine abodes, is the practice of mudita, often translated as sympathetic or appreciative joy. Mudita is the ability to feel happiness for the happiness of others. It is the genuine, unselfish delight in the success, achievements, and good fortune of another being. It is the direct and powerful antidote to the corrosive states of jealousy and envy. To understand the beauty of mudita, we must first look unflinchingly at the suffering caused by its absence. Jealousy is born from the painful illusion of a separate self, combined with a deep-seated belief in scarcity. It is the voice of the ego that whispers, happiness is a limited resource, a pie with only so many slices. If that person gets a big slice of success, or love, or recognition, that means there is less left for me. This scarcity mindset creates a world of constant comparison and competition. We look at a colleague's promotion, a friend's happy relationship, or a stranger's beautiful vacation on social media, and we feel a painful constriction in our own heart. Their light, we believe, somehow diminishes our own. This is a state of profound suffering. We are literally torturing ourselves because someone else is happy. Envy is a joyless, isolating prison. It creates resentment erodes trust, and prevents us from truly connecting with others. Our modern culture is a vast training ground for jealousy. Social media platforms function as curated highlight reels of other people's lives, presenting an endless stream of perfect moments that can trigger our own feelings of inadequacy. Advertising constantly tells us that we are lacking, that we need what others have to be complete. The corporate world often pits colleagues against each other in a zero-sum game for promotions and resources. We are conditioned from a very young age to compare, to compete, and to feel the sting of envy when we perceive ourselves as falling short. Mudita is the radical act of rebellion against this conditioning. It is the cultivation of an abundance mindset. It is the liberating realization that happiness is not a limited pie. In fact, happiness is a fire that grows brighter when it is shared. Another person's joy does not take anything away from you. On the contrary, by learning to rejoice in it, you can actually partake in that joy, effectively multiplying the sources of happiness in your own life. When you can be happy for the happiness of the hundreds of people you encounter, you have hundreds of new reasons to feel joy each day. The purest and most natural expression of mudita can be seen in the heart of a loving parent watching their child succeed. When a child takes their first steps, or learns to ride a bicycle, or graduates from school, the parent's heart swells with a pure, unselfish pride and joy. There is no trace of jealousy. They do not think, "I wish I could ride a bicycle that well." They simply delight in the child's own happiness and achievement. The practice of mudita is the practice of learning to extend this noble parental heart to everyone. It is learning to see the successes of our friends, our colleagues, our neighbors, and even our rivals as opportunities for our own heart to feel joy. Like the other divine abodes, mudita is a quality we can consciously cultivate. We can make it a formal practice. We can sit quietly and bring to mind a dear friend and intentionally reflect on their wonderful qualities, their successes, their moments of happiness. We can consciously fan the flames of our happiness for them. We can feel the warmth of that vicarious joy in our own chest. Then, we can gradually extend this practice outward. When you are walking down the street and see a happy couple laughing together, instead of feeling a pang of loneliness or envy, you can train your mind to think, "How wonderful! May their happiness continue and grow." When you read a news story about someone who has made a great discovery or achieved a lifelong dream, you can choose to feel inspired rather than diminished, thinking, "How amazing for them. It is wonderful that such success is possible." We can even transform our relationship with social media, turning it from a field of comparison into a training ground for mudita. When we see a photo of someone's beautiful vacation, we can consciously practice feeling happy that they are having that joyful experience. This practice requires patience and sincerity, but with time, it can fundamentally shift our relationship to the world, from one of competition to one of joyful participation in the vast tapestry of human happiness. The heart that has been trained in these three divine abodes, the loving kindness that wishes all to be happy, the compassion that wishes all to be free from suffering, and the sympathetic joy that delights in their happiness, is a heart that is immensely powerful, open, and engaged with the world. But to be truly liberated, it needs one final quality to bring it into perfect balance. Metta, karuna, and mudita are all active, radiant, and outward-going energies. If practiced without wisdom, they could lead to burnout, attachment, or emotional exhaustion. We could become a bleeding heart, so overwhelmed by the joys and sorrows of the world that we lose our own center. The fourth and crowning divine abode, upekkha, or equanimity, is the quality that provides this essential balance. It is the grounding, the stability, and the spaciousness that allows the other three to function with profound wisdom. Equanimity is perhaps the most subtle and easily misunderstood of these four qualities. It is the capacity to remain centered, balanced, and peaceful amidst all the changing fortunes of life. It is the mind that is not thrown into elation by success, nor thrown into despair by failure. It is the unshakable peace of a mind that has found its true center. The great danger is to confuse this profound quality with its near enemy, cold, detached indifference. Indifference is a state of closing down the heart. It is born from fear or aversion. When the suffering of the world feels too overwhelming, the indifferent mind says, "I don't care, it's not my problem," as a defense mechanism. It is a form of numbness. Its emotional tone is cold, distant, and disconnected. Equanimity, on the other hand, is the result of a radically open heart. It is a state of such vast and unconditional love that it does not get caught on the particulars of any one situation. It is born not of fear, but of profound wisdom. The mind of equanimity says, "I care deeply about all beings. I will act with love and skill to help where I can, but I will also accept the reality that I cannot control every outcome, and I will not allow my inner peace to be shattered by the changing winds of the world." The emotional tone of equanimity is warm, present, spacious, and deeply peaceful. A good analogy is that of a skilled surgeon in an emergency room. A surgeon who is indifferent would not care whether the patient on the operating table lives or dies. A surgeon who has compassion but lacks equanimity might be so overcome with anxiety for the patient that their hands tremble, making them unable to perform their work effectively. The surgeon who embodies equanimity has a perfect balance. They care deeply about saving the patient's life. That is their compassionate motivation. But under pressure, they remain calm, focused, and steady. They do their absolute best, applying all of their skill, and yet they are able to accept the outcome with peace, knowing that some factors are beyond their control. This is the calm, engaged, and powerful nature of upekkha. True equanimity arises from the deep, experiential understanding of the laws of karma and impermanence. We remain balanced because we see with unshakable clarity that all situations are impermanent. The pleasant feeling of being praised will pass. The painful feeling of being blamed will also pass. We see that all beings are the owners of their own karma, that their happiness and suffering arise from countless causes and conditions that have been set in motion over long periods of time. This doesn't mean we don't help. We do, but we do so with the humility of knowing that we are only one condition among many, and we release our ego's attachment to being the savior. The Buddhist teachings describe 8 worldly winds that constantly blow upon us, threatening to throw us off balance. Pleasure and its opposite, pain, gain, and its opposite, loss, praise, and its opposite, blame, and fame, and its opposite, disrepute. The ordinary, untrained mind is like a leaf, helplessly tossed about by these winds, elated one moment and devastated the next. The mind trained in equanimity is like a great mountain. The winds still blow, the rain still falls, the sun still shines. The mountain experiences all of these conditions. It is intimate with all of them, but it is not shaken. It remains stable, grounded, and majestic. Its peak resting in a calm sky. This is the state of mind we cultivate through the practice of upekkha. We can practice it formally by reflecting on the impartial nature of reality. We can bring to mind different people friend neutral person, difficult person, and cultivate the wish. Your happiness and suffering depend on your own actions, not on my wishes. May you find your own path to peace. We learn to offer our love and compassion freely, and then we learn to let go of the results. These four divine abodes, metta, karuna, mudita, and upekkha, when cultivated together, create a heart that is truly boundless and free. Loving kindness provides the warmth and friendliness. Compassion provides the engaged and caring response to pain. Sympathetic joy provides the unselfish celebration of happiness. And equanimity provides the unshakable, spacious, and wise foundation for them all. To develop these qualities is to build a beautiful and indestructible home for our mind, a place of refuge from which we can engage with the world with boundless courage, wisdom, and love. The final part of our journey, then, is to learn how to live from this awakened heart and with the wisdom of the entire path, not just in moments of formal practice, but in every messy, beautiful, and ordinary moment of our daily lives. We have now traveled the entire length of the Noble Eightfold Path, exploring the wisdom that illuminates our way, the ethical conduct that harmonizes our life, and the mental discipline that transforms our heart and mind. We have seen the blueprint for a life free from the deepest forms of suffering. It is a beautiful, comprehensive, and profound map, but a map, no matter how perfect, is not the territory. The ultimate purpose of this entire journey of understanding is not to accumulate knowledge, but to inspire a living, breathing practice that we can weave into the fabric of our messy, beautiful, ordinary lives. This final stage of our exploration is about how we take all of this wisdom off the meditation cushion and out into the world. It is about how we actually walk the path. The first and most crucial shift in perspective is to understand that the path is the destination. In our goal-oriented culture, we are conditioned to think of spiritual practice as a means to an end, a difficult journey we must endure to one day reach a faraway prize called enlightenment. This mindset can create a great deal of striving, impatience, and frustration. The liberating truth is that the path is not a path to awakening. The path is awakening, expressed in each moment. Every single time you choose a kind word over a harsh one, you are practicing right speech, and that is a moment of liberation. Every time you catch a flash of anger and meet it with mindful awareness, rather than fanning its flames, you are practicing right effort, and that is a moment of liberation. Every time you feel the simple sensation of your breath in your body, you are practicing right mindfulness, and that is a moment of arrival. The goal is not to one day become a perfect, enlightened being. The goal is to be fully present, compassionate, and wise in this very moment. The journey is made of these moments. The path is made by walking. A helpful way to think about this is to imagine building a house. You would not lay a single brick and then become discouraged that you do not yet have a finished house. You understand that it is a gradual process, that each brick laid with care contributes to the final structure. So it is with this path. Right view is the architect's blueprint and the solid foundation. The principles of ethical conduct, right speech, right action, and right livelihood are the strong, upright frame of the house, giving it integrity. The practices of mental discipline, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration are the skilled craftsmanship that joins everything together with precision and care. And the four divine abodes: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity are the warmth, the light, and the beauty that turn the structure into a true home, a refuge from the storms of life. We build this inner refuge one moment, one brick at a time. To support this moment-to-moment practice, it is immensely helpful to establish a mental gymnasium, a time and place for formal practice. While the goal is to be mindful and compassionate throughout our day, it is very difficult to do so if we have not first trained the underlying mental muscles. We go to a physical gym to lift weights so that we have the strength to navigate the physical demands of our life. In the same way, we can set aside a short period each day for the formal practice of meditation. This does not need to be an intimidating, hour-long session. Even 10 or 15 minutes of consistent, daily practice can be profoundly transformative. This is our time to go to the inner gym. We sit, we quiet the body, and we practice watching our breath, cultivating metta, or simply observing the flow of our thoughts and feelings without judgment. This daily appointment with ourselves is where we build the core strength of mindfulness. It is where we tune the instrument of our attention. It is where we water the seeds of the wholesome qualities we wish to cultivate. This formal practice is not separate from our life. It is the vital training that allows us to bring a calm and clear mind to our life. With the strength and clarity cultivated in our formal practice, we can then begin to transform the entire world into our monastery. We learn to practice meditation in action. The morning commute, which was once a source of stress and anger, can become an opportunity for practice. Instead of fuming at the traffic, you can feel the sensation of your hands on the steering wheel, listen to a Dharma talk, or practice sending wishes of loving kindness to the other drivers, recognizing that they, like you, just want to get where they are going safely. At work, in the midst of a difficult meeting, you can practice right speech. Before reacting defensively to a criticism, you can take a single, mindful breath. This creates a sacred pause, a space of freedom. In that space, you can choose to respond with words that are calm, truthful, and constructive, rather than words that escalate conflict. When a colleague is speaking, you can practice right mindfulness by giving them the gift of your full, undivided attention, rather than planning your own response. Even the most mundane activities become opportunities. When you wash the dishes, you can feel the warmth of the water and the texture of the soap, bringing your full presence to the simple task. When you eat a meal, instead of distracting yourself with your phone, you can savor each bite, noticing the flavors and textures, and cultivating gratitude for the vast web of causes and conditions: the sun, the soil, the farmers, the truck drivers that brought this food to your plate. In our relationships, the practice comes alive. When your child is having a tantrum, instead of meeting their chaotic energy with your own anger, you can anchor yourself in your breath and meet them with the compassionate understanding that they are being overwhelmed by a painful emotion. When your partner shares good news, you can practice sympathetic joy, genuinely delighting in their happiness. When you are faced with unexpected and difficult news, you can practice equanimity, acknowledging the pain and fear without being completely swept away by it, remembering the truth of impermanence, and finding your anchor in the present moment. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, for those of us walking this path in the midst of a busy life, is the practice of immense patience and kindness toward ourselves. The path is not a straight, upward line. It is a spiral. We will circle back over old territory again and again. There will be days or weeks when we feel we have lost the path entirely. We will forget to be mindful. We will speak with anger. We will get lost in anxiety. We will fall down. This is not a sign of failure. It is an inevitable part of the journey. The true practice is not about never falling down. It is about how we get back up. The measure of our progress is the degree of gentleness and compassion with which we can treat ourselves when we have lapsed. When you are meditating and you realize your mind has been wandering for 10 minutes, lost in a fantasy, the unskillful response is to berate yourself. I'm so bad at this. I'll never get it. This is just another form of violence. The skillful response, the practice itself, is to smile gently at the mind's antics, to acknowledge the wandering without any judgment, and to kindly, softly, and lovingly guide your attention back to the breath. That moment of gentle return is the moment of awakening. Every time we begin again, we are strengthening the heart of compassion. We are learning to hold our own imperfect, beautiful, human experience with the same boundless acceptance that we extend to all beings. This is how we walk the path, not with grim determination, but with a patient, persistent, and ever-present kindness. We began this journey together with the image of a person running on an invisible wheel, caught in a breathless loop of striving and exhaustion. We felt the truth of that image in our own lives, the subtle and pervasive stress of being out of sync with the world. We gave this condition a name, dukkha, and in naming it, we began to take away its power. We looked for its cause, not in our circumstances or in other people, but within the very workings of our own minds, in the relentless, burning thirst of craving and aversion we learned to call tanha. And then, at the heart of our investigation, we discovered a profound and life-altering hope. The truth that this thirst can be quenched, that this suffering can cease, and that a state of unshakable peace, nirvana, is possible. We were given the map, the clear and practical prescription of the Noble Eightfold Path, a guide to living a life of wisdom, ethical integrity, and mental clarity. We have traveled from a place of confusion and struggle to a place of clarity and understanding. The ultimate message of this ancient path is not that it holds all the answers, but that it provides you with the perfect tools to discover the answers for yourself, within yourself. It does not offer a magical escape from the challenges of human existence. Instead, it offers something far more powerful: the strength, wisdom, and compassion to meet those challenges with grace and freedom. It teaches us that peace is not a destination we must travel to, a distant shore we might one day reach if we are lucky. Peace is a way of being. It is a quality of heart and mind that we can cultivate right here, right now, in the midst of our complex and often chaotic lives. You are the gardener of your own mind. You have seen which seeds bear the bitter fruit of stress and anxiety, and you have been shown how to plant the seeds of mindfulness, kindness, and wisdom. The power to determine the harvest of your life does not lie in your past. It lies in the quality of the seeds you choose to plant in the soil of this present moment. Therefore, do not be discouraged by the vastness of the path. You do not need to become a perfect person overnight. You only need to begin. The journey of 1,000 miles, the journey to the end of suffering, begins with a single simple step. That step can be taken right now. It can be the choice to take one conscious breath as you sit in traffic. It can be the decision to offer a kind word where you might normally offer a criticism. It can be the gentle act of forgiving yourself for a mistake. It is the simple, repeated, and loving act of beginning again. The power to break the invisible loop, the key to your own liberation, has always been and will always be in your own hands, in your own heart, in your own mind.